immediately to respond to the issues. We know that when we are talking of this, we are talking of something that of the pandemic, we're talking of something that is talking to the act, to the regulations, to the protocols, to the procedures that are to be followed. Yes, it has put a strain over the department, making sure that everything is in place. There were challenges that they were going through, but because we are not having a department that is just sitting, they keep on planning in order to make sure that things are done. But I won't leave the fact that MEC, we tried by all means to get a plan for the department so that whatever challenges that you are getting, we will be knowing that you are moving from this plan in order to accommodate this situation. Yes, all that has been done. You have given us the report as much as we didn't have a departmental plan. We're not going to keep on saying it because now we are getting the reports on daily basis as far as the commanding structure is doing, as well as you, whenever we are calling you, you keep on updating us as the portfolio committee. Thank you so much for that. Now I'll go on to point number 2, the attendance. Xolan.
Thank you, Chairperson. We've got a few apologies from Honorable Hlongwa Madlala, from Honorable Mavuso, Honorable Nkwanyana, Honorable Sibia, and Honorable Twala. Thank you, Chairperson.
Don't give me a heart attack. We are having 4 members that are not in.
Yes, Chairperson.
Correct. Honorable Mavuso is not with us now because she promised to be with us and then leave when the meeting starts in Mkhanyakuta. Are you sure that she's not with us? Pardon? Uqala nini uba nguMavuso wena? Is our meeting constituting?
Yes, Chairperson, because Honorable Cele, she's in now.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
In.
Yes. Now I'm looking. So we are having apologies. That is Honorable Hlongwa, Honorable Sibia, Honorable Mavuso, Honorable Twala, and who else? That's
Honorable.
all.
Yes.
Okay, but despite that, we do have a quorum.
Yes, Chairperson.
Thank you so much. Then can we then go to the adoption of our agenda?
Dube.
Honorable Dube.
I propose adoption of the agenda.
Thank you so much. Honorable Virana.
Chair,
Chair, I just wanted to raise this issue. You did mention earlier that I should raise it in this meeting. There is a standing item on the COVID-19 feedback. And I just want to know that standing item, when will it be presented, as it's not appearing in the agenda as it states. That if that standing item of the COVID-19 report that we did receive from the department this morning can be put onto the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Virana. I think what we have agreed upon as this portfolio committee, whenever MEC is coming up with the remarks, her remarks are more of the COVID-19. So I don't know whether members, you want to have it as a standalone, or we will be getting it as we have been getting it from the remarks by MEC.
if I may come in, Chair.
Yes, Honorable MEC.
No, thank you, Chairperson. We don't mind I had actually put together a presentation so we could just have it on the agenda, and Maxam will just be limited so that I speak when we get to the COVID progress report.
Thank you. Can we then put it latest responses on youth? No, I don't want it to come before the youth issue. It must be immediately after the presentation of the financial report, fourth quarter report.
That's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, then. Thank you, members. Then I think now we can proceed to number 5, remarks by MEC. Over to you, Honorable MEC.
Thank you very much, Chair.
There's somebody else talking.
Oh, my apologies,
Yes.
Chairperson. We haven't adopted the agenda with amendments. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, members.
Yes, Chair, that's what I was going to say. But I'd like to move for the adoption of the agenda with amendments.
Thank you, Honorable Takur. Anybody seconding?
I second, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Zele. Thank you so much, Konlan, for your reminder. Then we can go over to, hand over to Honorable MEC.
Chair, thank you very much, Chairperson. Let's appreciate the opportunity to come and present to the committee today. Chair, my remarks are not going to be many because, as I said, we can just speak to the issue of progress report on COVID within the agenda. But I did want to indicate, Chairperson, that the APP that we had presented to the portfolio committee and was adopted, including with the agenda, while we are right now continuing and we had submitted it as it is, the reality is that the of it is that it has been changed, but it has changed really, not changed by us, but changed by circumstances. So I want to indicate to the members that is going to change in its entirety, because we have had to find monies within our own budget to fund a number of things that relates to COVID that did not have the budget initially. Even though there have been some money that we've been given by the national department, it has not been anywhere near sufficient to monies that are actually needed for us to be able to implement the projects that we have implemented. We are going to speak on the report about the facilities that we have reconfigured. The majority of the amount that has been utilized there has had to come from our own coffers. In fact, Chair, we have had to reprioritize the grant that we get from national in relation to infrastructure. So that is going to change a lot of our priorities moving forward. Having said that, Chair, it is an indication that we want to make that after COVID, it looks like we are, as government generally, are going to be in a serious challenge in relation to funds, because the majority of the budget and monies that are being utilized now will not really be able to recoup later on. Having said that, we are trying to live within our means, and where we are unable to do so, we try and reach out. As part of our program in COVID, we are trying more doctors. Now, these are not doctors that these are not doctors where we had posed and those posts are not filled. No, we don't have empty or we don't have vacant posts, but we've just decided that we needed to add clinicians to be able to assist us in battling this particular pandemic. Now, for us to be able to hire the number of doctors or clinicians that we need more money. We have spoken to the minister and we are waiting for him to come back to us and indicate whether he's going to be able to assist us in employing them. If National Department doesn't give us the money at this point, I'm not sure what we are going to do, because within our funds, we've now really reprioritized up to the last cent. So it is a bit of a challenge. The point that I wanted to make, Chair, was that our APP and the budget moving forward is going to be very different from what we had submitted. Of course, once we've reworked the new one, after probably it's going to be after the budget hearings, we'll then present it to the portfolio committee. But I'm just saying this so that members understand where we are coming from. So today, Chair, we are going to have CFO and Jack presenting on the fourth quarter report, both financial and non-financial, and then the HOD and myself are going to speak to the progress report on COVID. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable MEC. Can we then go back to our agenda? Members, here are the remarks from MEC. Would you like to have a bite on the remarks before we proceed? I'm seeing a hand. Honorable Virano.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just two questions just on the MEC's remarks. Thank her for the remarks that she's given. The question I have is just regarding the funds needed. How much was received by the department from National, and how much, according to the department's own planning and budgeting, is actually needed to deal with the COVID-19 crisis? And regarding infrastructure, it is well known that the reprioritization process, some infrastructure projects that were planned have now been forced to be delayed due to other plans. Can we just have a list of which of these infrastructure projects have been delayed due to reprioritization? My second question is just regarding the additional doctors' posts that are required by the department. And the funds and the approval is still awaiting that from the minister. How many doctors is the department wanting to add onto its number of practitioners? And in a previous remarks by the MEC, she did talk about the process of trying to get volunteer doctors in to assist during this time. What is the process of the volunteer doctors? Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
Honorable Dube.
Yeah, I think in a way, Hlalo, asiqondisele ukuthi we are still going to get the reports. We are in the meeting where we are going to get reports, and anytime when the MEC makes the remarks, she is making the remarks because she's paving the way for the reports that we are going to get. That is why, Hlalo, we always would look at questioning, putting questions at the end of what is going to be reported. Because I'm listening to what Honorable Virane is saying. I mean, he's correct, but all those things, I believe, should be in the report. It's better if we ask them in alignment with what is reported by the department in the report. Asikuhloniphe lokuthi njalo uMEC mekade beka inkulumo kungabe nje noma uthi sifuna ukumbuza noma ingekho into esifuna ukumbuzela yona ngoba ireport isuka isazoza, then we can interrogate the report. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. As I have said, we are only going to get some remarks from MEC, and MEC made it clear that now that we are going to have a standalone item that is talking to COVID, it is there. There is no reason for us now to get deeper to the questions before the presentation. A remark and a presentation, those are the two different things. Can we then allow our program to follow, to flow? Honorable Virana?
Okay, Chair, I'm fine. I'm happy to have these questions covered under 8.2.
They might not even be covered under 8.2. You might get them in under 8.1 during the presentation of the department, because all what you have been asking is under the financials and non-financials, definitely. But in 8.2, surely it will be just a summary of what and clarity of what has been presented in 8.1. Can we then now go to the confirmation of the minutes? Whilst we are there, I wish to request the committee that with the list of the minutes that we are having and matters arising, can we defer them in order to make sure that we spend more time to this fourth quarter report, because that is where the key issues are kept, things that we need clarity on versus the COVID. They are there. Instead of going back to the minutes, let us defer the matters arising from the minutes for the next meeting that we will be calling shortly. Can we agree on that? Before we go to the confirmation of the minutes.
Yes, I agree, Chair. We should defer it because there's a lot of matters arising.
Can we then talk about number 6, the confirmation of the minutes?
Go ahead, sir. Continue, sir.
Thank you. Can we then yes, proceed, Golan. We start with page 1. We start with the corrections then. Page 1. Page 2.
Sorry, my apologies, Chair. Each document is not coming up on my screen.
Okay, can we please look at that? Who is our IT responsible for that? Who is our IT looking on that? Tammy, are you working on it?
Yes, Chair, we are working on it.
So can we then pause until it is projected in her side? You update us, MEC, when it is projected on your side. Imfene ngesingesi intoni?
Hawu ubani manje sezoba imfene?
Imfene ngesingesi intoni? Yabona ke njengangoku, Honorable Virana, don't come with your baboon here. We will kahle kahle. We've got holy water because we've got honorable here.
What are you saying, Chair?
All of a sudden, we cannot get our program projected on the side of MEC. That means you are just rolling here with your baboon.
You came with the zoo.
You are full of witchcraft.
Chair, but you can see the minutes. I don't know what you're talking about.
Tammy?
Chair, may I check whether other colleagues from the department are able to see the minutes besides MEC?
Can you see the minutes? Jack has got Jack?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair, I can see the minute.
Muji,
I can see the minute, Chair.
CFO,
I can also see them, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
ayibona kabathaka to MEC lapha.
yeah, sesamthatha ku-MEC wethu. Uyabona nje Siyanda, ithi ingxaki yakho. Siyanda?
Hello, Chair.
I see the minute, but I'm trying to locate MEC to check that I'm able to see it, but I can see the minutes.
No, I'm here. I'm here. Benifuna yini Sihlalo?
No, we're checking if you are now seeing the program document.
Oh no. Still, I'm not. I don't see it. Chair, Mhlambe they can just send it to me. It's fine.
And then
I still can't see.
HOD. Why HOD is an island?
I can see.
Oh, you have got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. Can we assist? Can we assist MEC?
Yeah, but Chair.
Are you having the document now? Not yet.
No. I it's still not showing on my screen. But we can continue. Usiyanda uzongithumelela ama-copies ayo ngizayivula kwenye i-computer la eceleni.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Sure.
Can we then, Siyanda, I'm seeing your hand up.
Come here.
Siyanda, I'm seeing your hand up.
No, Chair, I'm fine now. I will send the documents. See, I'll resend them to MEC the documents.
Yeah,
Down your hand then. Thank you. Golan, can you then go to page 2?
Come in.
Kubera. Continue. Continue, Golan. That is page 3. Now let's go to page 4. Page 6. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12.
This
Thank
is the
you.
last.
This is the last page. So having gone through those from page 1 to page 13, have you seen any corrections to be done, members? In the absence of corrections, can we then adopt the minutes as the true reflection? Dube?
Hayi hlalo ngakingekho mina aba-adopte laba bebekhona.
Yes, I second, Chairperson.
Wawukhona?
Ngangikhona, Chair.
Ngibona i-apology yakho khona.
Kwama kwayiphi kanti le esikhuluma ngayo? Apology, Chair. Kusho ukuthi ngikucorrecta phela le ma-minutes.
Yeah, no apology, you're not there.
Awanga yiphi date? Hayibo.
Asizubuyela kuwe.
Hayibo, Thami.
Held in public or public.
Ngangikhona emeetingini yokugcina, Chairperson.
Can we correct that?
Please.
Chairperson, these minutes are for umhlana 17 March.
Wengekho.
Sasikwa Public Works.
Wengekho. I know that.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sika Public Works.
Yes.
Hayi ngangingekho ke ka Public Works, yes.
So can I have
Yes,
some
Hlalo.
Ushare.
Hlalo.
Now.
Honorable moves for the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you, Phakathwayo.
A second.
Takuri.
Slano,
Again?
I'm in the meeting now. I second the minute.
Yo, lo mhlangano usunikezela kuni. Ngicela useconde umhlangano wami ngeke ndiwunikezele kuni nobabili. Yaxolisa. Ngiyanithanda ngempela kodwa nje.
Okay.
I-picture enzima lesinikezelayo. Honorable Gumede is proposing for the adoption, and then Nomakiki Majola second. Ngiyaxolisa Honorable Kwanyana. Siyakwamkela ngenyani emhlanganweni wethu. Kodwa ingaba sekukhona ukulahlekana.
Yes, sir.
Inkosi Honorable.
Yes,
And then we have said the matters arising, we have deferred them and we have agreed on that. Can we then?
Thank you.
Golan, don't throw us on the deep end. I can't see now our program, our agenda. Can we go back to our agenda? Yes, thank you. We have already agreed about bullet point number 7. So can we then pass now to bullet point number 8, departmental reports. 8.1, presentation on the fourth quarter report, financial and non-financial. Over to you, Club. Over to you, MEC. MEC? Bakhona abathakathi kule meeting. MEC? HOD?
Yes, Hlalo. MEC. Yes, we can hear you, MEC. I don't know other members.
Bese ngilahlekile ke uyayihlala.
Ngiyakuva njengangoku. We're just handing over to you now our 8.1.
Okay, no thanks, Chair. The 8.1 is going to be presented by Ubaba Jack Governor no CFO Ubabu Shezi. but let me hand over to HOD so that he takes both of them. So we'll get to presentation on 8.1. Then our next presentation is going to be the progress report on over to the HOD.
Good morning, Salo. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, MEC, and good morning to the colleagues. As MEC says, we've invited other officials of the department who are going to be responsible for the presentation of reports. I think one must state that these are reports that we got from our DHIS, that is a District Health Information System, firstly, but secondly, these are preliminary reports. We're still going to refine them as we are going to be submitting them later this year, that is in the next quarter. The part is that these reports will a little bit touch on the thing that MEC spoke about, which was the changes that have been accorded by COVID-19 on how we are working. So the first report, I have asked two people, Mr. Jack Gavender and Miss Cindy Mabaso, to be there and present the report. The financial report will be presented by the CFO, Mr. Shezi. After that, we will be guided by the meeting how we proceed. Jack.
Yes, HOD, I'm waiting.
Yeah, I think you can start presenting if the meeting allows. Chairperson, are dependent on you.
Thank you so much. But Jack, don't present numbers. We are not here for total numbers. We are here for why are you having those numbers? What was your main purpose? What is it that you wanted to achieve? We are tired of the total numbers of this, because as politicians, we don't talk total numbers. We talk of issues that we can see in the changes of lives of our people. Over to you, Jack.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just waiting for the presentation to come on. Thanks, Kulani. Okay, so Chair, I note your request. We've tried to change it based on the meeting in Dundee and the meeting at Public Works thereafter, and hopefully we've come closer to what you want in terms of the way we present. So can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide. So Chair, so we took away the tables and we're saying that one of the focus areas is to improve information communication and technology in the department, and we do it by ensuring that our hospitals and clinics have access to broadband. We're currently sitting at 57 hospitals and 522 clinics. This is a progress from 2018-19, 48 hospitals and 222 clinics. And through improving ICT, we say this will improve the issues around data management and recording in terms of e-health, health service planning, resource allocation, and decision making. The department is working on a second network via its PABX project to run other services, so this improves the rate at which information is transferred between the hospitals and head office. Next
move
slide,
with us. Whoever, sorry, Jack. Whoever is dealing with this slide must move with us. Move with you. Must not be left behind.
Okay. Next slide, Kulani. When it comes to primary healthcare reengineering, we still say that for quarter four, we've seen close to 7 million patients at our clinics. Also through our outreach teams, we've seen 1.9 million head count in terms of patients. We have challenges in terms of low head counts at facilities. This is largely due to the outreach programs, which is a positive sign in terms of us reaching the community. We do have an issue around staff for data capture, so there are sometimes incomplete information. In terms of our interventions, we're looking at data clean where challenges have been identified. We are increasing the appointment data captures at high volume facilities. And also we're trying to stagger the times the data captures come to the facility so that we improve the data capture rate. Currently, most data captures finish off at 4 o'clock. We're trying to extend that beyond. Chair, the next slide basically shows the impact of our various interventions. And we're saying that over the years, we've seen the life expectancy at birth increase. For males, from the 2001-2006 cohort to the 2016-21 cohort, we've increased from 47.5 years to 7.1 years, whilst a female's life expectancy in 20s is around 63.7 compared to the male's 57.1. This is largely showing that there are positive impacts in terms of health outcomes. Next slide. Here we're looking at our impact on reducing morbidity and mortality through HIV/AIDS and STI. We note the tests that have been done, male medical circumcisions that were completed, and we can proudly say that we have 1.4 patients on ART in the province. We do have challenges though. There's loss to follow up in terms of the patients on treatment, and we have poor initiations in terms of children under 15 years old. Our interventions is to focus on same-day initiations to NIMAT, improve our clients' ART readiness through counseling, and continue to implement targeted testing, special focus on key populations such as children under 15. Next slide. When it comes to TB treatment, there are successes in TB treatment, although we are below the target of 87%. But we do note that 67% of our TB clients 5 years and older who were found positive were put on treatment. There are still challenges in terms of loss to follow-up, which we can attribute to poor tracing of defaulters. Our interventions are looking at vehicles to be purchased, appointment of data captures, and also increasing the capacity of the department to trace through our CCGs, our ward-based outreach teams, and collaboration with identified NGOs. Next slide. When it comes to maternal mortality, we just show you figures that share to say that last year, January to March 2019, we had 57 maternal deaths in the facility. This year we have 54. And we are seeing a progress in terms of that. But as far as interventions are concerned, we're looking at asking our clients to focus on health awareness, encourage them to adhere to the health protocols, and to take responsibility for the health in terms of seeking health care early, so that our outcomes in terms of antenatal care and postnatal care are improved. We find that through this health awareness, clients become aware of their morbidities so that it can be managed appropriately so as to improve the outcomes as far as delivery is concerned, and also it helps to reduce teenage pregnancy. Next slide. In terms of continuing to reduce maternal mortality, we are progressing as far as antenatal care is concerned, postnatal care. We do note that 8,809 of the pregnancies were due to by teenagers. Our interventions, we want to strengthen implementation of in-facility pregnancy testing of all age-appropriate women. We want to continue with our community awareness and dialogues in specific districts based on the data, with a focus on Utukela, Ugu, Ngungjelov, and Zululand. We want to monitor implementation of youth zones for pregnant teenagers, as well as continue with activations on teenage pregnancy. Next slide, please. We do note the progress in terms of contraceptives, where we had close to 470,000 women taking up long-acting contraceptive methods, largely due to good marketing. We've seen more than 75% of the target population was screened for pap smears. We will continue to conduct cervical cancer screening awareness campaigns in the province, and we will monitor the target that we've set for professional nurses to ensure that they do 2 pap smears per day. Next slide, please. In terms of deaths under 5 mortality, last year, January to March, we saw 967 deaths. This year, we're seeing 903. Our leading causes of death in children include HIV/AIDS, severe acute malnutrition, SAM, diarrhea, and pneumonia. There are interventions in place to reduce mortality. This includes testing and treatment of pregnant women for HIV, thereby reducing the transmission from mother to child, weighing and screening of children for malnutrition, as well as an expanded program on immunization, EPI. Next slide. We report that we've tested close to 13,492 infants for HIV, and 82 were tested positive, and our immunization coverage is sitting around 99%, largely due to our catch-up programs, especially in our ECDs, as well as hard-to-reach areas. In the table here, we reflect on the deaths in terms of diarrhea, pneumonia, and severe acute malnutrition. We do note that compared to last year, there is an increase in terms of malnutrition. Next slide, please. Our challenges in terms of under 5 mortality is our diarrhea-related deaths. We've seen an increase in herbal enemas and late entry to health service. Of course, there are social determinants to health which contribute to malnutrition. Interventions are to establish, we have established sub-district traditional health practitioner forums to facilitate better treatment and early referral for treatment. We will continue our support visits to the hospitals, as well as ongoing capacity building. We will implement social worker support and interventions for families of children admitted with severe acute malnutrition. And there's a strong drive for intersector collaboration through Operation Suka Masaka. Next slide, Chair. In terms of non-communicable diseases, Chair, we report we've done close to 5,000 cataract surgeries this quarter, and we screened almost 1.4 clients for hypertension, 1.9 for diabetes, as well as 3.3 million for mental disorders. We do note 2 deaths for malaria due to late presentations at health facilities for treatment. We will strengthen the malaria case management at health facilities, including health promotion activities to raise awareness of malaria prevention and control within the communities. Next slide, please. When it comes to emergency medical services, Chair, close to 12,000 calls were responded in under 15 minutes in the urban areas. Around 19,000 were responded to in under 40 minutes in the rural areas, whilst we transferred 58,713 patients between facilities. We do have an aging fleet, issues around staff, equipment, as well as the terrain that we travel with our ambulances. And interventions that the service provider, Transit Solutions, has been engaged to increase the pool of service providers and increase supervision of fleet matters. We do report that 302 vehicles have been ordered to be converted to ambulances and rapid response units, thereby improving the response time. This slide talks to hospital efficiencies. When you look at the table, at the rates, we find that we largely have exceeded our expenditure at the various hospitals, the district, regional TB site, chronic tertiary, besides the central. When one looks at the hospital type, we will find that our efficiencies within the TB and psych will need attention. Next slide, Chair.
Just
Chair,
go back to that slide. Could you please go back to the previous slide? Members, I want you to take note of the slide and you understand it. When you don't understand it, you say it. If this is science, it needs to be understood properly, because that is what is talking to our communities and how to assist them to understand. Continue, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Next slide. So Chair, the next slides just give you the challenges and interventions. They're more or less the same in terms of the different hospital types. So at the district hospitals, we noted the high expenditure per patient. There are issues around patients not adhering to admissions and discharge criteria. And we've seen low bed utilization rate, especially in Ilembe, King Seswayo, Mzanyati, and Zululand. In terms of interventions, we will continue to enforce adherence to admission and discharge criteria at the facility, and medical managers to be held accountable for non-adherence. Next slide, please. The regional hospitals, our challenges are similar, and we in terms of interventions, we will basically look at readjusting targets based on our seasonal trends and analyze the cost drivers that provided the reasons for increasing the costs. We do note that we are strengthening clinical governance practice in all hospitals, and there has been improvement in terms of staff levels in hospitals like Ladysmith. Next slide. Specialized TB hospitals, patients do stay longer. There are high expenditure per patient at the hospitals. There is an exercise the department is doing in terms of rationalization of TB hospitals as per the approved framework. I think in future helpful for the committees that process will be presented. Next slide. Psych hospitals. There's a backlog in forensic assessments due to and it contributes to the average length of stay. We do have stable mental care users who take leave during the festive season, which does result in drop in patient utilization. In terms of interventions, we have appointed part-time psychiatrists for Mzimkhulu Hospital, and there will be a review in terms of patient activity, expenditure trends at St. Francis Hospital. Next slide. Chronic hospitals, we do note that the average length of stay at Clare Hospital was low, but in terms of intervention, we have now identified Clarewood Hospital as a COVID-19 site. And of course, during the rationalization process, we'll see further changes, both at Hillcrest as well as Clarewood. Next slide, please. The hospital services, in terms of tertiary, the challenges are the same, with except with the difference here is that the elective services were reduced in third and fourth quarter to allow for increased emergency and trauma services during this time. This resulted in reduced inpatient occupancy. Next slide, please. In terms of Albert Luthuli, we do have difficulty in filling non-critical posts, and the low bed utilization rate is largely because of the festive seasons. The interventions is to fill the critical post as per the minimum staff establishment. Next slide, please. Laundry services. We have certain challenges in terms of laundry services around staff shortages, machine capacity, as well as linen. There are various interventions there, Chair, which talks about overtime, Also creation of more posts, infrastructure development, supply chain management processes to put period contract in place for procurement of new linen, as well as decentralization of budgets to facilities so that they can procure their own linen. Next slide. Next slide, Kola. The next slide talks to pharmaceutical services. The stockouts are largely because of national supply constraints. We have interventions with the National Department of Health. We're also participating in the national demand planning processes, and we have an electronic stock management system called RX Solution, which is used to manage drug stockouts as well as drugs in the facility. Next slide, please. Next slide, Kulani. For pharmaceutical services, we continue. We do say that close to 1.2 million patients are on the program, an increase from 900,000 last year. We also have various pickup points. The infrastructure slide that you saw talks about new facilities were built, and one is Garpo. We had 9 other projects that were upgraded, as well as 2 renovation projects were completed. Next slide, Chair. HOD, I've included the slides that you requested for COVID-19. Do I need to go over this or leave it for you in the MEC?
Just finalize the report. Go over them, Jack. We'll speak to them though afterwards with the MEC.
Okay, thank you, HOD. So in this slide, we give you a background in terms of COVID-19, where we note that the first case was on 5th of March. We also include the fact that we were on 21-day lockdown on the 26th of March, as declared by our president. Then we progressed to lockdown level 4 on the 1st of May, and we're progressing towards lockdown level 3 on the 1st of June, where there'll be full return of workforce with limitation on certain industries such as travel and tourism, restaurants, hair and beauty salon, as well as tobacco sale. The next slide. Next slide, Kulani. We include the preparations that we did in January around the 4 hospitals. Further preparations have since advanced, where we have come up with a permutation of 7,111 beds. This will be subject to regular reviews as the situation detects. I've included a list of
if I may just come in, Chair. Chairperson.
Okay, MEC.
Yeah, no. I think Jack has just about concluded his presentation, because his part on COVID is meant just to cover the last quarter, and we had requested that he indicates the facilities that were part of what we did in the last quarter. But I think he's covered that. I wouldn't want us, Chair, to repeat presentations from what he's saying and what the HOD is going to speak of. So I wanted to suggest that maybe we could stop there if there was nothing else outside of COVID.
Members?
Yes, MEC, that was my last slide before COVID. Thank you very much, Chair. Members?
Thank you. Let us take it like that, because we still have time for COVID.
Yes, Chair, if I may just add to what Jack has presented. Chair, you'll remember that Jack spoke about the issues of primary health care, the approach which we are trying to improve. I think we did not allude when he was presenting to the fact that already there are changes that MEC has introduced where MEC is pushing that we go to the people in terms of how we approach our services. So we've started with that, and also the district managers have been encouraged to. Oh, I'm gone. Hello.
I'm listening to you.
Hello.
SOT?
Oh, I'm back. Sorry, Chair. Hello.
We are listening to you.
Yes. So I was saying there we already are improving on our primary healthcare approach, led by the MEC and some programs that she has introduced, and we think they are going to work. This includes also the work that we're trying to do in terms of our TB management, where we want to use our partners more and use our CCGs more to ensure that we really cure TB among the members of our society. Jack also spoke about teenage pregnancy, where we also are saying in our clinics, we want to be holistic when teenagers come in, and we want to improve on this happy hour which we've started. But also during MEC's programs, we speak about teenage pregnancy, but also we try to encourage the issues of contraceptives. But we also are saying to the school health teams, can we really look after our teenagers, because the complications that come with teenage pregnancy are dire when you look at them. Malnutrition is another issue which we've looked at. We did present and look at it. We think it's generally increased, but we do not think as yet that COVID has contributed to that. However, we're still going to go back to our reports and really check whether in the last 3 months when we've had COVID, did it really contribute to this, like we are going to be checking with other illnesses as well. This, again, I want to speak to slide 16, where we are talking about the red areas in our different health types. If you look at slide 16, you see that the expenditure per patient day equivalent.
Sorry, SOT. As you are talking to that slide, I want it to be projected to us.
Okay.
Well,
can we go to
take that back to slide 16.
Take us to slide 16, Chair.
Then you can continue.
Yes, Chair, I'm saying on slide 16, we've got a green, an amber, and a red. The greens depict where we have met the targets. The ambers depict where we have deviated, and the reds depict where we have not met our targets. Now, there are also on the slide different hospital types, starting with district hospitals until the central hospital, which is the highest hospital in our province, that is speaking to Inkosi Albert Lutuli. But in the middle of that, we've got different, the TB hospitals, the psych hospital, and the chronic hospitals, which are specialized hospitals. Now, if I go to district hospitals, you see that we spent 2,946 rands on our expenditure per patient day equivalent, which is higher than what is expected. The reason for that is because when a patient comes to our institution and stays for a certain number of days, we expect them to stay for around 5 to 7 days, and they've been staying for 5.1 days, which is good. However, our admission rate has been 60.7%, which is lower. Now, that means with the staff that we have, which we cannot just move because the patients in that month are lower, the expenditure on COE and other consumables shows us that it is higher at that level, and therefore the expenditure per patient day equivalent goes up, informed by the fact that the inpatient bed utilization rate was low in that instance. So that is why in that instance you see our PDE being high in that hospital group. In the TB hospitals again, you see that the average length of stay is 48 days on average, and the inpatient utilization rate is at 24%. That means we will keep a few patients for a long amount of time. Again, there you still will have the same number of staffing who will be attending to a few patients, and that means the expenditure by the government does not go down in terms of the resources available for spending on these patients. Hence, you find that our PDE again increases in those hospitals. I just wanted to clarify that it is something that we are working on to say when we rationalize, we are going to have fewer TB hospitals as the province. This is because one, we are going to be rationalizing, but two, there is now a new drug called bedaquiline. And bedaquiline is used to treat patients, and it can make us to discharge patients even quicker, even if they've got MDR, XDR, and the generally a known TB, which we normally say it's normal TB, although any illness is not normal. But also, we are trying to work with communities and families to say, when we have a TB positive person, when we have a psychiatry patient or client, we should support them from the time they are admitted to the time they are discharged, so that when they get discharged, they can be supported to continue taking their medication from outside. We therefore do not find ourselves having to spend with patients who are on a subacute classification, so to speak, them being kept in an acute hospital. So these are endeavors on our side to try and ensure that we reduce our expenditure where we can in terms of PDE. I thought of just speaking to those issues because those rates would make the members want to say, is something being done about the deviations and us not meeting the targets? May I stop there, Chairperson? Thank you.
Thank you, HOD, for the explanation. Besibona nje imibala ye-EFF strong. Siyibone ku gold lona no green. So your explanation is good for us. We understand now. But ke ndiyathemba ukuthi besivumelene ukuthi imibuzo izawulandela mva. Ngisoloko ndibona isandla sika Ndicela izandla zikhe zithi ukuma, ndiyasibona isandla sikaThakuri, ndiyasibona isandla sika Virana. Ngicela ke zithi ukuma sinikeze i-chance yento ukuthi igqitywe le presentation. Can we be done with the presentation, members? And then we go to the COVID, because to me, I think now we're dealing with the non-financials. We are still going to the financials. Am I correct, HOD?
Yes, you are correct, Chairperson.
So can we, members, withdraw our hands for now, unless there's something burning? Honorable Thakur.
Chairperson, I withdraw for now because I think let's go through the financial and holistically then we can ask the questions. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, that will assist. I am seeing Lukosi. Who is Lukosi? Thank you.
No, Hlengiwe is not participating. She was assisting me to. I'm Hlengiwe in this meeting because my laptop gave me trouble.
Cela isandla sakhe singaveli ke.
Awu, Hlengiwe. Hayi.
Yasetshenzelwa le
I've
ndawo.
lowered my hand. Mfundisi, Mfundisi.
Yasetshenzelwa le ndawo kudlalwa.
Hayi, SOT.
Yasetshenzwa kuyagijinywa. Ngiyabonga kakhulu SOT. So members, can we then proceed if the non-financials have been finalized? Can we then proceed to the financials?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning again to honorable members, honorable MEC and colleagues. I think what I have observed with Jack's presentation on my side in terms of the visualizing the slides, I think it actually depends on the broadband, the speed, and where one is actually located. Because I have only been seeing them on a delayed kind of basis. So I would heavily depend on the fact that the slides have been shared, so honorable members can then follow the same as I go through them, because I'm using a hard copy on my side. Having said that, thank you very much. Indeed, this is a fourth quarter preliminary budget performance, and I'm emphasizing on the word preliminary because ordinarily the submission of our annual financial statements would usually happen on the 31st of May of every year, but because of the pandemic, that has been officially deferred. The date now for submitting our annual financial statements is currently sitting at 31st July 2020. So we still have between now and then to can actually effect changes where those would be necessary. And then it becomes final only after it has been audited by the Auditor General as expected. Thank you. Now I am moving to slide number 2 in terms of the content of the presentation. It's a standard agenda with a slight adjustment in terms of the...
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Chair. I think, I don't know whether it's my gadget. It has still kept the old, I don't see the presentation.
The hospital services, could you please, Kolani, get out of the hospital services and go to the financial report? Do we have a problem on that?
I'm on the financial report, Chairperson, but I'll check with IT because I'm on the page 2 of the content, but I'll check with IT.
Do we still have IT? Do we still have IT? Besides the projected report, don't we have our reports as members with us?
Let's see, forgot.
Hear you, Chairperson.
Yeah, Honorable.
I can't hear you. Do you have what, Chair?
I'm checking if members don't have the report as sent to us by the department instead of waiting for the problem of the IT.
My
Chair, I have the report.
I have mine too.
Can we then proceed?
Thank you, Honorable.
We want to know how long will it take us with the IT to get back to where we would like to be.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chairperson, for that guidance. So as I've indicated on slide number 2, there is an additional bullet in terms of departmental priorities as resolved in the Health Portfolio Committee meeting that was held in December 2019 to actually enhance the context of the numbers as we present them from a finance perspective. Slide number 3 then shows the overview in terms of the overspent by the department of 80.453 million rands. Now, this is equivalent to 0.18% of our adjusted appropriation for the 1920 financial year. Now, there are various reasons for this picture. COVID-19 being one of them in terms of the pandemic and the impact thereof being felt in Q4 of the 2019-20 financial year. I'll speak to that in relevant slides. Also, our drive to pay as much as we could in terms of accrual so that it doesn't impact on our allocated budget for the current financial year 2020-21. And then the funding gaps where those prevailed, that will also be shared in terms of the subsequent slides. Now, looking at the expenditure per program, slide number 4, and explicit in slide number 5 in terms of the numbers and the financial performance in percentage form. As indicated, the contributors to the overspend of 80.453 million were mainly the district health services, the emergency medical services, provincial hospital services, and health facilities management. Now, if we move to slide number 6, starting with administration, which was at 98.2%, or underspent by 14.767 million rands. Contributing there to that picture was machinery and equipment, which was underspent by just above 27 million rands due to the delayed finalization of specifications due to their specialized nature of related commodities there, and the sourcing strategy for the procurement of computers as part of the computer replacement project that was embarked on by the department. Also, issues of network connectivity and the PABX equipment for the entire department. So funds were reprioritized for these purposes during the budget adjustment period, which was around October 2019. Compensation of employees was also underspent by 13.785 million due to cost containment and our inability to fund the filling of posts and the resultant carry-through impact that we have now learned to live with in terms of if we fill posts in any particular year, we need to be forward-looking in the sense that we need to provide adequately for their salaries over the entire medium-term expenditure framework period. So we have actually had a bit of challenge in ensuring that that happens. And if that's the case, then Treasury doesn't give us a blessing in terms of filling of such posts, because we will not be able to fund them throughout the MTF period as indicated. Goods and services within administration of program 1 was also was actually overspent by 24.476 million. Legal services fees contributed to that in terms of them being paid centrally within program 1, resulting in the overspending in this particular line of 17.209 million. Contractor service costs relating to the outsourced oncology services was also overspent by 5.571 million. Due to the fact that related spend was not fully reimbursed by our National Department of Health as expected. The following slide speaks to district health services or program 2, which was overspent by 138.489 million or 0.6% of the adjusted appropriation. This was mainly attributable to goods and services, which was overspent by 285.164 million, mainly due to the medicine line item that was overspent by 209.261 million, which speaks to the drive that we had in terms of clearing all outstanding medicine invoices and the provincial pharmacy supply depot journals that had to be done largely for the antiretroviral drugs. Medical supplies was also overspent within goods and services by 49.243 million as a result of the clearing of outstanding medical implant invoices and carryover expenditure from the 2018-19 financial year. Now, this drive speaks to what I have indicated earlier in terms of our drive to clear accrual such that we minimize impact thereof in subsequent budget allocations. The National Health Laboratory Services, in terms of the tests that the test that we actually do through them, was also overspent by 15.292 million due to a drive to clear accruals again, as previously indicated. About 10.6 million rents pressure against stationery and printing line items. This speaks to procurement that we've had to fast track around all stationery that's needed for patient records in our facilities. Transfers and subsidies was also overspent by 35.472 million, mainly due to the medical legal claims that we had and budgeted for. Mitigating some of the pressures was underspending against compensation of employees due to the delays in filling of posts. So this economic classification was underspent by 144.145 million, and machinery and equipment, which was also underspent by 14.98 million due to the delays in the replacement of placement of orders for motor vehicles. Honourable members will recall that at mid-year, the department reported that the specific transversal contract, national contract that assists us in terms of procurement of motor vehicles was being finalized, and that happened later in the financial year, contributing to the delays. The vehicle orders were indeed placed, and we're expecting some of the deliveries to actually happen in the current financial year 2021, and that would have to be provided for accordingly in this regard. Slide number 8 speaks to program 3, emergency medical services, which was overspent by 32.167 million, or 2%, which is mainly attributed to the machinery and equipment relating to the acquisition of new ambulances and the accelerated recapitalization of our aging fleet. We had received a total of 113 new ambulances, and on the other hand, about 114 of them would need to be disposed of due to them having exceeded their useful life. Goods and services was also overspent in program 3 by 11.833 million, mainly as a result of high cost of maintaining the aging fleet, and in addition, related clothing material and accessories for emergency medical service staff contributed in terms of the overspend as a result of the procurement of uniforms and protective clothing for 157 newly appointed EMS staff, which was not adequately provided for in the FISCAS. These pressures were mitigated to some extent by underspend against compensation of employees, again just above 11 million rands, due to the slow pace in the filling of the emergency medical service posts, with most appointments only commencing or assuming duty in the month of March 2020, with the balance expected to assume duty in the current financial year. Slide number 9 speaks to Program 4, provincial hospital services, mainly regional hospital. That sub-program was actually overspent by 94.964 million, or 0.8% of the budget, as a result of machinery and equipment, which was overspent by 65.716 million due to the acceleration of replacement of medical equipment, such as ventilators and anesthetic machines. The province had been given a go-ahead by our National Department of Health to procure additional medical equipment on the basis that we would be reimbursed for this, and that did not actually materialize. Goods and services was overspent by just above 30 million due to the clearing of accruals from 2018-19 financial year relative to medicine and medical supplies, specifically medical implants invoices from suppliers worth about 59.954 million. Within goods and services, again, agency and support and outsourced services was overspent due to higher than budgeted costs for the outsourced oncology services worth about 60.528 million rands. The NHLS line was also overspent due to the drive to clear March invoices so that we minimize impact thereof in the allocation of the 2021 financial year. These then contributed about 5.629 million rands. Mitigating the overspend in Program 4 was or came from the business and advisory services in slide number 10, worth 15.079 million, where the department had budgeted for the quarterly payment of the joint medical establishment claims from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in the adjustment estimate, but these actually didn't materialize due to delays in the receipt of supporting documents from the university for the amount claimed of about 19.883 million rands, which payment will then be effected in the current financial year 2021. Legal services was also underspent, as most related costs were paid under Program 1. And then the contractors' costs was also underspent by 31.449 million due to over budgeting for the maintenance and repair of medical equipment, as most new equipment is now procured with standard maintenance and repair agreements. Now, this is a positive in that it doesn't necessarily reflect as an underspent, but it actually is a saving, a welcomed saving, so to speak, as we spend less and less on maintenance, because we now have standard maintenance agreements for most of our major equipment items. Municipal service payments was underspent by 10.136 million, mostly because of overallocation in this regard. Slide number 11 speaks to Program 5, Central Hospital Services, which was underspent at 97.9% of the adjusted appropriation, or 112.615 million in rand terms, due to goods and services underspending by 98.984 million, mainly under agency and support and outsourced services, contributing about 88.7 million due to rescheduling of the fourth quarter payments for the public-private partnership arrangement that we have for Inkosi Albert Luthuli Central Hospital, payment of which was deferred to the current financial year in order to reduce the overspend balance and obviously what would be construed as further unauthorized expenditure by the department. Contractors' costs was also reduced. Expenditure on maintenance and repairs as a result of new medical equipment that is now procured with built-in maintenance contracts. As indicated, legal services was also underspent, as most legal service-related costs were accounted for in Program 1. The underspend within goods and services was mitigated by overspend against medical supplies, attributed to the drive to clear accruals relative to implants and prostheses invoices as indicated. Transfers and subsidies in Program 5, mainly to households, was also underspent by 3.564 million due to over budgeting for medical legal claims under this program. Machinery and equipment was underspent as a result of complexity of the specifications for the tender for digital X-ray equipment as we migrate from the analog to the digital platform in this regard, resulting in delays in finalizing the tender, orders of which were subsequently placed in the fourth quarter for delivery in the current financial year. Health sciences and training in slide number 12 was underspent at 97.3% of the adjusted appropriation, or 36.309 million in rand terms. This was mainly due to compensation of employees because of the over budgeting in the adjustment estimates, as we had anticipated to receive more medical interns than we were finally allocated. As a reminder to the honorable members of the committee, these interns are actually allocated by National Department of Health through the community service, the National Intern and Community Service Program. As a province, we had received a total of 555 first-year medical interns. However, 77 of these interns only assumed duty on the 1st of April 2020 due to them having to repeat their exams. An additional 8 interns will be assuming duty on the 1st of July 2020. And within the goods and services economy classification, this was also underspent in respect of the training and development of staff, as mostly administration staff, as this was suspended in the 18-19 financial year due to cost containment, which still continued in the 19-20 financial year. Program 7 on slide number 13 speaks to healthcare support services, which was also underspent by 65.239 million, partly attributable to a sizable number of outstanding medicine invoices in the form of accruals worth 164.3 million that could not be paid in the 19-20 financial year, as this would have actually further exacerbated our overspend against our vote. Also, underspent was inventory, other supplies due to delays in the procurement and delivery of linen as a result of the decentralized approach, where facilities were now expected to actually procure all pieces that they were short of at facility level, and the decentralization happened during the year, impacting on the ordering process as institutions were adjusting to their new responsibility. Compensation of employees was also underspent within Program 7, attributable to the non-filling of laundry service posts as a result of cost containment and insufficient carry-through budget over the MTF period, as indicated earlier. Program 8, Health Facilities Management, was overspent at year-end by 43.763 million, or 2.4% of the adjusted appropriation, largely due to the overspend against buildings and other fixed structures, worth 41.844 million, attributable to projects at Shabisa, Eddington hospitals. The projects that actually progressed faster than expected, and obviously the department had to then honor the payment obligations in that regard. And then the higher than expected cost of the Dr. Pixley Isakaseme Memorial Hospital and the Groundville Clinic projects. COVID-19 pressures also contributed here, as would be seen in the later analysis in terms of the economic classification. We've had to actually honor payment obligations worth about 26 million rands for infrastructure projects that were then quickly activated in the fourth quarter of the financial year. The final payment also for the St. Mary's Marian Hill Hospital contributed to the pressures in this program. Also overspent was goods and services due to property payments in respect of maintenance costs, the rest of departments continued focus on maintenance of existing assets. If you look at the financial performance for the quarter or the preliminary report, slide number 15, but looking at it from the expenditure per economic classification, numbers of which are then explicitly shown in slide number 16, with goods and services contributing the most in terms of the spend at 208.767 million. Followed by households, 42 million, and then buildings and other fixed structures, 41.8 million, and so on, as indicated. Slide number 17 then provides with a greater analysis in terms of the economic classification, financial performance as at end of quarter 4. And honorable members will observe that the reasons, most of them would have been mentioned when the same picture was presented at program level. So I'll just maybe fly through some of these slides with regard to the economic classification analysis. So as per the detailed narrative at program level, as I've indicated, compensation of employees was underspent by 216.5 million rands. Or in percentage form, it was sitting at 99.24% of the adjusted appropriation due to the insufficient carry-through budget as to fill posts as indicated over the entire medium-term expenditure framework period. Goods and services overspent by that 208.768 million as indicated. And reasons are then provided below the goods and services line. But mainly, it was due to our drive to clear accruals as we wanted to minimize impact thereof in the allocation for the 2021 financial year, as previously indicated. Slide number 18 continues with goods and services, but shows all areas where we had actually underspent, somewhat mitigating or minimizing the impact of overspending within this economic classification. So the contractors cost, the agency and outsourced service cost, the medicine inventory interface, related costs, the business advisory services, all of those were actually underspent as projected in slide number 18. Slide number 19 speaks to interest and rent on land, which was overspent by 787,000 due to interest levied on overdue accounts such as municipal, domestic accounts, telecom accounts, and claims against the state. But with the main contributor towards this 787,000 being interest, there was due to late payment in respect of a court case that had been finalized. Transfers and subsidies to provinces and municipalities reflects an underspend of 2.605 million or 98.9% of the adjusted appropriation, mainly due to lower claims than projected relating to municipal clinics, as these are performance-based. But then again, the municipality was to actually appoint additional staff to render services for the HIV/AIDS related program, which didn't materialize. The departmental agencies and accounts was marginally overspent at 0.9% or just under 200,000 rands. Transfer mainly relates to the Health and Welfare Sector Education Authority, which is based which is around compensation of employees and is paid per the allocated budget. The overspending is actually attributed to the underspend or the under-budgeted TV license fees that had to be paid for our various facilities across the province. Continuing on slide number 20 to non-profit institutions, which was at 94.5% or just above 3 million rands underspent. This relates to lower demand for services because it is performance-based. Again, we pay per number of clients that these non-profit institutions actually see on our behalf as a department. Households was overspent by 9.1% or 42.253 million. Mainly as a result of medical legal claims that were higher than expected, and the staff exit costs also contributed 5.823 million rands towards that. a total of just over 162 million rands in litigation was actually settled in the 1920 financial year against a budget of 128.2 million rands. Most of the litigation is at regional and district hospital level, with additional challenge of high attrition rate among medical specialists who actually provide clinical leadership at those levels, and the critical shortage of specialized nursing staff, particularly in the areas of obstetrics and pediatrics, further worsens our position as a department with regard to these claims. Although spent in the 1920 financial year was lower than the previous financial year, the trend for these claims is generally increasing, climbing to an average of 100 million per year from the 2013-14 financial year to the 15-16 year, then increasing to 251 million in the 16-17 year, and almost doubling in the 17-18 year to 462 million, and that reduced slightly in the 18-19 year to 439 million. The department attributes this historical trend to the backlog of cases, poor records leading to poor defense of some of these claims, as well as the staffing and other challenges in hospitals as indicated. Slide number 21 continues with medical legal claims, just showing the main contributors in terms of facilities during the 1920 year, being Prince Mshien Memorial Hospital, Benedictine Hospital and Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital, and the numbers are actually highlighted there. The department attributes the decrease in the 1920 year to cases being delayed in anticipation of the establishment of the centers of excellence across the province, which will lead to us treating claimants for their future medical needs instead of actually paying large financial settlements in lieu thereof. Payment for capital assets, specifically buildings and other fixed structures, shows an overspend of 41.8 million or 844.844 million or 4.7% of the adjusted appropriation, largely due to the higher than expected expansion in a number of projects as well as the COVID-19 pressures amounting to 26 million as indicated in the overview slide. Machinery and equipment was overspent by 8.434 million or 0.8% of the adjusted appropriation related to the acquisition of additional ambulances and the recapitalization of our fleet as previously mentioned. As we move towards conditional grants on slide number 23, all of our grants were fully spent except the National Health Insurance Grant, which was underspent by 16.877 million. As a result of the late allocation of this grant, it was actually moved from being an indirect grant to being a direct grant, wherein we were directly going to be responsible as a provincial department. And it is mainly, it can only be mainly utilized towards the contracting of private doctors at our NHI pilot site. So it cannot be used for anything else. Otherwise, all of them were fully spent as indicated. Revenue, slide number 25, does show that we had over collected, which is a positive, our targeted collection by 3.484 million. And a narrative follows there in slide number 26, all contributors towards the over collection, starting with the sale of goods and services other than capital assets that contributed 277.249 million or 0.3% in terms of the over collection due to the higher than expected receipts from patient fees. Also contributing towards the over collection is revenue from interest, dividends, and rent on land, which amounted to 260,000, exceeding the 157,000 that was actually targeted. Sale of capital assets were also over collected by 3.536 million, and this is dependent on the performance during the auctions as some of our assets get disposed. Slide number 27 shows areas of under collection within revenue. those being the two highlighted, the fines, penalties, and forfeits, and transactions in financial assets and liabilities, which were under-collected as indicated. Now, to enhance the context and the understanding of the financial performance, we have then included the departmental priorities for the 1920 financial year and progress thereof in terms of the preliminary outcome. Starting with slide number 29, the branding projects that were embarked on, that were about 93% spent. IT-related projects, all of them are listed, and they were at 91% spent. For instance, if I can just highlight one or two, the increase in broadband access to hospitals, there had been an increase of from 57 of these hospitals to 71 of them that are now connected. And for clinics, 582 had initially been connected at the beginning of the financial year. This had been increased to 611 clinics that were now connected as at the end of Q4. The new e-health system for Matatiele and Prince Mshiyeni Memorial Hospital pilot, this actually went live in February 2020 as part of phase 1 of this project. So the next group speaks to quality of care, improved maternal, child, and communicable and non-communicable disease outcomes, and those are all indicated in terms of performance, in terms of spend against allocated funding, as indicated in at the bottom of slide number 29. The next slide, slide number 30, continues and shows all this prioritized spend items that speaks to vaccines, nutrition support, supply of male condoms, and so on. So performance against all of those is actually indicated alongside each and every line item as projected. The next group speaks to other quality improvement projects, including increased access to services as our primary reason for existence in the department, and performance there is also depicted in this slide as indicated. The malaria improvements in terms of prevention, case finding and treatment, all of these speaking to our APP, and the oncology service performance in terms of the related contract for the Northern Natal and the eThekwini districts. Financial performance is also indicated there. Slide number 31 continues with the Ideal Clinics project as one of our national health priority projects. Various sub-programs in terms of spend and performance are actually indicated there. The NHI project, Honorable Slalo.
Ndicela ungalishiye igama ka-HPV, because most of the time it has been an issue, the issue of HPV. Say something on it so that we go past it. Thank you.
The HPV campaigns, I'm sure Dr. Shabalala and Dr. Muji can talk more about it more than myself before I bite my tongue. But it's one of the priorities in terms of the campaigns that we need to embark on in terms of preventing or detecting, our ability to detect the related morbidity that accompanies the human papillomavirus in our female clients, younger female clients. So that too is part of our priorities, and those campaigns were successfully conducted in the 1920 financial year as expected. Okay, so moving on. The NHI projects, the EMS ambulance project, the training and development, the household budgets in terms of the medical legal claims and bursaries, all of those were departmental priorities and were funded accordingly, and performance against those is actually indicated. Lastly but not least, then the infrastructure projects are also presented in terms of the performance against this, starting with the Dr. Pixley Gaisaga Memorial Hospital project, which is now sitting at 99% at year end, and is earmarked for completion on the 23rd of June 2020 in readiness to further assist us with the pandemic and the expected demand of related services. The RK Khan Hospital waterproofing projects for both phase 1 and phase 2 and the monkey barrier projects, those were successfully done as indicated in the detail there, and various projects around Eddington Hospital by our implementing agent, Department of Public Works, performance of which is then provided in terms of detail as to where we were at the financial year end. It's continued on slide number 34 in terms of the various projects, including installation of new lifts, upgrade of electrical and mechanical installations, the sewer, water and fire reticulation projects, the renovations to the first and second floor, which are now at design stage, and the security upgrade in terms of fencing and gatehouse, also at design stage. The autoclaves project in slide number 35 also progressed well, with 8 of them now being installed. Of the 33, and 2 which are at tender stage, and 23 which have been cancelled due to expiry of the validity period, and the 23 autoclaves have been handed to facilities for implementation at that level, and these have been awarded and are at various stages of manufacturing by the recommended suppliers. The water tanks project was also or is still, or actually, this one has actually been awarded. All of these water tanks, generators, and replacement of lifts were actually awarded on the 13th of May this month. So we are at contracting stage in that regard. And that essentially brings me to the end of the presentation, Honorable Chairperson. Or maybe just because it came up during the discussions earlier on, I may as well just mention the fact that the pandemic came through in Q4 of the financial year, and we had been allocated, or we were given permission to actually utilize 138.9 million rands towards that. 113 million rands of that was for PPE, as in personal protective equipment, and 25 million rands was earmarked for the procurement of ventilators. The budget bid as at this week is now sitting at just above 6.3 billion. So that is the funding gap that we are looking at as a department as at now towards the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are looking forward to benefiting from the National Disaster Relief Grant in this regard, and we hope that we will indeed be funded accordingly. And I think, as indicated by the Honourable MEC, we have had to really scrape through our various programs and sub-programs in terms of reprioritizing our budget towards this pandemic, and those numbers are continuously being fine-tuned on a weekly basis, and the same is actually communicated with both provincial treasury and national treasury, and so we are looking at the eventuality where we then will be funded accordingly, and then the budget, our budget for 2021 will then be adjusted accordingly together with the APP as indicated in the opening remarks by the MEC. Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and members.
Thank you so much, CFO. Could you please, the money that you have mentioned in relation to COVID, you have said there is 138 million for?
Correct, Chairperson. It's 138.9 million that we have in our books so far. Of that 138.9 million, 113.9 million was towards the procurement of PPE, and 25 million earmarked for the procurement of ventilators, additional ventilators, as those are critical or would be critical in terms of COVID-19 patients. Thanks.
Thank you. You mentioned something about 6.5 billion that you are looking at in order for you to manage any COVID-related issue. Were you meaning that?
We have been working with both provincial and national treasuries and our National Department of Health, wherein a funding model or a costing model was actually established to assist us estimate the financial impact of the pandemic. And as I've indicated, as of this week, the projections or the estimates are sitting at 6.3 billion rands that we would actually need for infrastructure, health, human resources, the procurement of personal protective clothing, the procurement of additional ventilators, and various other line items that are explicitly mentioned in the model, and that can actually be made available to the committee for the record. So it's currently sitting at just above 6.3 billion rands. Thanks.
Thank you so much, CFO. At least now, the members, as they are listening to the proper explanation, the financials and non-financials, we know that we have been having a cry in the line of the PPEs. As we all know, that pandemic came without a notice, just abruptly. So when it came, no one would be in a position to have everything in hand. All what they had in stock as we were visiting them for their readiness. They showed us that it's just for under normal circumstances. And then when we are talking of this pandemic, which is not only for South Africa, it's international. Really, the issue of PPEs, it was not only for us as a province, nor us as South Africa. Now that there is a response to that, we have to commend the government for doing something in line with the protection of our workers, as we know that without PPEs, we know we won't be in compliance with the pandemic. Having said that, members, there is now the next presentation, which is more on COVID. I think from my perspective, it would be good to let the presentation be done, because it's going to also explain more of the issues that have been raised in the fourth quarter, as it has been made clear to us that our fourth quarter came together with the birth of the COVID-19. Can we let it flow like that? Members?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Can we then take it back to you, MEC, for the next presentation, which is the latest on COVID-19. Xolani, assist us with uploading of the agenda so that we are all in par on what is to follow.
All right, thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you for the opportunity. HOD is going to take us through the presentation now. I'll add a few things. I've just realized going through the presentation that there's one or two things that we should have added as Ingeko, but I will speak to them once HOD.
Thank you, MC.
Yes, Chairperson, good afternoon now. I'm hoping that the presentation is now here. Let's go to the slide with the graph. I think on that slide we just want to show that the numbers of the cases in our country and in the province are standing in a set that says we now on maybe I should start by saying that the presentation is depicting numbers of the 27th of May as we are on the 28th of May today. and therefore we're saying in the country we've got 25,937 cases that have been confirmed, and we have had 552 deaths in the country. This is the country picture, but if you zoom into the province, we have now 2,162 cases. Because of one death that happened, we now have 50 deaths. And on this day of the 27th, we recorded 222 new cases as a province. Can I have the next slide? The next slide, may I have that? The next slide is speaking to the numbers, but on the next slide, I just want to emphasize the fact that there are 2,165 cases of COVID in the province, but there are 1,180 recovered patients. That says the numbers we have recovered are 54% of all the cases that we've had. And the numbers that have passed on, that numbers of people who have died, is 50, which is 2% of the numbers. But also in terms of the bed utilization, you can see that there is 253 people that we have admitted. This number is going to change as we start to isolate people on our own and also quarantine people as a department, because we've realized that it is better to do it in that fashion than to allow people to self-isolate. We think that has contributed to the increase in terms of the numbers of people that are getting infected. Can I have the next slide? I think the next slide, one will not go into very much. Safe to say that the median number of cases reported in our province on a daily basis, we are still recording 22 cases per day as a province. So that's all that I would want to depict from that slide. On slide 5, which is the next slide, I'm wanting to impress on the fact that eTheku still contributes 84% of the cases, but we will speak to that more when we look at the fact that while eTheku is 84%, iLembe is now looking at 36.9 per 100,000 population of cases. So if you calculate the incidence in iLembe, comparing that incidence with the incidence in eThekwini, it then becomes clear that iLembe is actually more of our challenge than eThekwini is. Yes, eThekwini, iLembe, and uMgungundlovu, I think we've added to Tugela as well, are the districts that we must concentrate on, but iLembe is one district that we are concentrating on even more. I think we will also speak to that a little bit of the exercises or the interventions that we've already started in terms of us intervening at iLembe districts. May I have the next slide? Slide 6 is merely showing us the numbers, but we are there depicting two important aspects. One, the fact that if you look at the total number of cases and you look at the active cases, you find that in eThekwini, using the total number of cases, eTheku is at 33.1 people per 100,000 people in terms of their incidence of getting to be infected with the virus. When you are using the active cases, eTheku is at 13.8 people. But when you then go to iLembe, iLembe has gone, if you use the total cases, to 84.6. But if you use the active cases, Ilembe is at 36.9. Now, if you use this statistic, it becomes clear that we must be concerned more with the happenings in Ilembe than the happenings in eThekwini. As you look more on the far right of the slide, showing that the population in eThekwini is just above 3.8 and the population in Ilembe is around 700,000. So it is a concern that we are working on, and we already have started to speak to that and trying to reduce that incidence rate there. The next slide, which is slide 7, I will not speak to. It's a slide that just shows us the numbers of deaths that have happened, that we've got 50, and it's showing the districts that have given us those deaths. So I will not go into that slide again. The next slide, it's the total number of days in different districts. We've got only 5 districts that have reported having no new cases, but even that is a fluid number. I will not go into it. As people are going to start moving, probably these numbers are going to change. I think the emphasis on that is for us to say the precautions that have been spoken about and we still continue to speak about are the precautions that we must all adhere to. Also, it then says, while COVID-19 is an illness, it is supposed to be the lead or led by the Department of Health, but everybody must take responsibility of making sure that as we move around the province and even outside the province, we take precautions so that the spread of the virus is lower, but also so that we ensure that the curve, which we've been saying, are we lowering the curve, are we not lowering the curve, can be lowered, and the spread of the disease can take us longer to have many people. I think MEC has assisted us there in allowing that we appoint people who are going to be advising us in terms of scientifically analyzing the province in terms of our performance and also advising on many other things. Because this is MEC who did that, I will not go into it. She will choose whether to or not to speak to it. The next slide, which is slide 9, is showing us fatalities. On this one, I want to show that the median age of people who have died is 69 years. This has been important to us as health because we have had struggles in some of our institutions where our staff in the front line were complaining about themselves being exposed because they are above 60, but some of them have comorbidities as well. I think the guidelines that have come are telling us that yes, you can be 60 years and above and have comorbidities, but if your illnesses are controlled, you actually do not need to be really worried about it because you are merely managing your illness very well and you are more like a normal person. However, your vulnerability is a little bit higher than somebody who is younger in terms of age, but also is not really having a better chance because you have other illnesses. So I think that is what I wanted to speak there. In terms of the beds, we now have 1,807 isolation beds. We've got 5,164 quarantine beds. We've got 16 high care beds. We've got 143 ICU beds. Now, these beds will be shifting and moving again as we prepare ourselves even more to admit patients. As we have said, we are going to be admitting people that we find to be positive. But also, we are thinking that the president, after came to our province, did allude to the fact that we must increase the number of beds, and we are really speaking to that, and we are increasing the number of beds in all our districts. So also, MEC maybe will add on that. including the fact that we are partnering with private sector, including private BNBs and other possible accommodation sites in terms of us getting beds. We also are increasing the number of beds together with increasing the staff that will be working around COVID. The Premier has allowed us to employ more people in terms of nurses and general orderlies and admin clerks. The process has been started, and these will be distributed according to the need all over the province. The process of employing them, because of us being under lockdown, will happen as virtual processes in the different districts. We also are speaking to the National Department of Health in terms of getting other categories of staff, doctors and other categories that will include psychologists and also physiotherapists. We are considering this because should we need to admit people in ICU and other isolation sites, we may need these categories more than we do now. So we are working on that and are in discussions with the National Department of Health. But we must also report that we have received 27 professionals from Cuba, and these were received and stayed in Pretoria for 14 days under quarantine. They then came to our province where they spent another week, after which they were then distributed all over the province to assist us in managing the COVID virus. Among them, there are epidemiologists, there are statisticians, but also there are health technology experts who are going to be assisting us in managing all the aspects of COVID, and we are going to be learning from them. I think my report just covered all those, and this is where I end, Chairperson. MEC, I'm done. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the HOD. Chair, he has spoken to the Cuban doctors, which is one of the elements that I felt were missing from the document. I would also want to HOD to come back, Chair, and speak to the closing of General Gizenga Hospital, because as you know, there has been a bit of an issue about it. But before HOD speaks to that, Chair, let me just firstly indicate that we have decided that it's not practical to close all hospitals every time there is an infection. What we have then done was establish protocols of establishing the level of an infection in a particular facility, which will then dictate to us whether the level and extent of which the virus has gone and what needs to be done and which areas need to be probably turned into quarantine and therefore cleaned down and so forth. The reason, so that is our approach. You will hear that in other clinics, Chair, there has been a number of clinics that have been closed down. The reason for that is that clinics often, they are small by nature, so it's not easy to establish how far the virus has gone. So it becomes very quick to just close the clinic down for a day or two, scrub it up, decontaminate it, and then open it up after a couple of days. What we have then also done is establish a team where we close down a facility. We then have a team of roving nurses that are going to be assisting in those facilities. That team is going to start operating from next week. But in the meantime, where we close down a primary healthcare facility, we then bring in mobile units which are able to assist in that particular space. General Gizenga, Chair, was a bit different from the other facilities in the sense that when we got the infection, we could not pick up exactly where the infection was, on the basis that the health workers that tested positive were not necessarily from one unit or one section of the hospital, but they were all over the hospital. So we found ourselves in a situation where we needed to close down the facility for a couple of days and turn it into a quarantine and find out where how far the infection has gone and then reopen. And certainly we've had more than 40 positive health workers in General Gizenga. We have been trying to also establish whether the infection they received from within the hospital or it's an infection that came from the community. At this point, we could not pick up in the hospital if there was a patient that was infected, except for a Locha mother that was in the facility and had just discovered that the husband had turned positive in the community, and she had gone to visit the husband and came back. So we had a virus that was all over the hospital. Hence, we then had to close it down for a couple of days. But I must say, Chair, that is not going to be our standard operations. As you would have known, or you might have heard, Chief Albert, truly, when we had an infection there, we just isolated the area where the infection was because we knew for certain where it was and who was infected, and we dealt with that element. We did the same thing at King Edward, and we did the same thing in Eddington when there were infections. So this is how we are going to do it moving forward. We are not going to have a mass or an all-out scale of closing facilities, because that's not sustainable. If you close facilities, these are facilities that we need, and we might not be able to sustain that, because when you close King Edward, for instance, where then are you going to take the patients that are needed there? So we've just had to come up with a proper protocols on how to attend that particular issue. The issue of the clinicians that HOD is talking about, and who Honorable Viran asked about earlier on, we have conducted an assessment, and this is the assessment that we have sent to National. Maybe in the next meeting, we are going to provide the portfolio committee with a list and the number of people that we have felt that, or number of clinicians that we felt that are needed and needed to be added into the system. Chairperson, if your team, if whoever is busy with the slide, can just go to slide 11. Angikwazi ukubona mina ngizozwa ngawe sihlala uma ngabe sesivulekile.
Bonga Xolani, ngicela uncedise uMC ngeso slide 11.
No, nginaso mina sami la sihlalo, but ngicela ungitshele wena nasenisibona so that I can then speak to it.
Okay, Xolani, ngicela usiphe thina. Slide 11 for the benefit of the members.
Yes, Todd?
Not yet.
Okay. That is the slide, Chair, that is speaking to the status of beds in our facilities.
We've got it.
Oh, no, say it's all right. Chair, I just thought I needed to get into a bit of detail in relation to the slide and explain what we have done. And I know that in the last meeting we spoke to this, but we decided that our beds are going to be separated into three. The first, in terms of preparing of beds as a department, the first one is creating capacity within our own facilities by reconfiguring the different facilities that we have and adding isolation beds where we can. And then the second one is an element of putting up field hospitals. Then the third one is an element of employing the local hotels and lodges as quarantine sites. So I just wanted to explain that, Chair, what we have done is that in our facilities, we have tried to focus in creating isolation beds in all our facilities, because by doing that, it then gives us an investment as a department, a long-term investment, not just a once-off, so that we are able to utilize the beds, so we are able to utilize the facilities for other things after COVID. So that is what we have done. And in relation to that, we now have 1,807, as OHOD was saying, beds. You will notice, Chairperson, that currently the beds we started with. Yes, Chair?
I don't think the slide that is projected is the one that you are talking to. Xolani, are you getting the slide?
Chair, I think it's slide 10 that MEC is now referring to. Can you go to slide 10? Where MEC is quoting numbers. MEC may continue.
He started with bed status. I think now this is the correct one.
Yes, MEC.
You have the correct one now, Chair.
Yes, we've got the correct one that is talking about the bed status, where you have identified 6,318.
Right. No, thank you, Chairperson. You would notice, Gestalo, that initially when we started as a department, we had operational beds that were 395. Now with this configuration, we've been able to actually create beds that are coming up to that 1,800 amount. What we have done, Chair, and agreed on doing is that at least every district must have one facility that will have some isolation beds or some facility that's going to be converted and be reconfigured into isolation. Every district, Chair, has a facility that we have done that too, with an exception of two districts, that is Iherigwala and Utugela. These two districts, as in our ibhedlela, Chair, that we can be able to maneuver in any form, because some of their facility, Iherigwala in particular, all their beds are utilized, and where the beds are not being utilized, the facility is not even at a standard that can even be revamped. So we couldn't do anything about it. So the people who are in Iherigwala are then going to be taken to Richmond Hospital, which is in Umgungundlovu, and it's closer to Iherigwala. Abasotugela will then be bringing them to Mgungundlovu as well, because that is where we also have quite a number of beds. But in every district, we have a hospital that we are reconfiguring. Oku, we are reconfiguring EGJ Crooks, and out of the work that we are doing there, Chair, we are going to get more than about 40,000. No, about 40, not 1,000, Chair, about 40 isolation beds and 20 quarantine beds where there's a facility that was already being renovated. But so that is, those are the beds that are going to be usable and be covering the district. At eThekwini, we've got a number of facilities that we have worked on. The first one is Wentworth, Chair, but the most important one, and where we've done a lot of work, is Clarewood Hospital. Literally, Clarewood has been converted into a COVID hospital for now, and we have almost changed all the wards. And out of Clarewood, Chair, we are going to get 159 isolation beds. Yeah, I think it's 159. 159 isolation beds. So that is quite a big number. So like I said, every district is going to have. Iking Chair also doesn't have a facility that can be reconfigured, but we've then decided to put up a field hospital. Let me then get to the field hospitals. Our field hospitals are divided into two, Chair. We have one category where we are converting an existing building and converting it into a hospital, and then the second category is where we bring in a temporary structure that is going to be a field hospital. There are two facilities that we are converting existing buildings on: the exhibition center at eThekwini, which is giving us 450 beds, and it's Royal Showgrounds in Umgungundlovu that is giving us about 256 beds, Chair. Then after that, we are going to put up the temporary structures, like I said. One is going to be put up in Ngwelezane, another one will be put up in Lembe district, then two are going to be put up at eThekwini. Having said that, Chair, we are ready to roll out the other temporary structures as and when the need arises. The reason why we decided not to put all of them up at once is because from the moment you put it up, you start paying for it, and yet we might not be utilizing that particular service. So we decided we are going to be rolling that out. We've also decided, Chair, to start utilizing iPixlika Isagaseme Hospital, although it's not being opened officially, but we are going to be using the wards there because the wards are ready, the ICU beds are ready. Out of that, we are getting 450 added beds. I must indicate, Chair, that this is not the official opening of Pixley. Immediately after COVID, we are then going to recommission the hospital, open it properly, and employ staff that is going to work there. For now, we are going to have this staff that HOT was speaking to that is going to be allocated in all the districts, and that's who is going to be manning the facility. Then finally, we've got private hospitals, Chair, that have also donated beds. The first one is a hospital called Escort Park. They are giving us 87 beds. Now we had started utilizing them, but asikafiki to the level of using the whole hospital. When it comes to quarantine sites, Chair, we decided not to build new quarantine sites because those who are in quarantine are often people who are not really sick. They will that require a very minimum level of care. So we are utilizing the hotels that are not being used currently. We are utilizing lodges that government has, and that is where our numbers are coming from. Of course, you have a number of hospitals that also have their own quarantine sites that we could use. That then talks to the numbers that we already have, Chair, on our own. I think that's the one thing that I wanted to indicate, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MEC, for the additional information. I think now, according to our agenda, we have covered all the issues that the department was supposed to be presenting to us. Can I then give the time to can I then give the time to members? Because when it comes to the responses to 2019 Youth Parliament, it's a matter of noting it. I think that is what we have agreed upon. There's nothing much that we're going to do about that report. Am I correct, members? Members.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
So can we then interrogate the presentation? Show by hands with the show of hands. Honorable Virana, can I first see all the hands? Honorable Virana. Next member will be Honorable Shamin. The next member, Honorable Kumeja. In that order, can I have Honorable Viran?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the MEC and the department for presentation. I have questions on all three of the presentations we gave. I'll just start with the one on the non-financials. I welcome the new format that the department is now putting in place to put forward their presentation. What I can suggest is at the top of the top of the slides, as you have done in slide 16, you show us of the targets which were met, the deviation or target not met, but the explanations are fine. My question is on the slide on emergency medical services, slide 15. Regarding the calls responded in both urban and rural areas, I've done some quick calculations. For urban areas, only 36.6% of calls were responded under 15 minutes. In rural areas, it was 35.6% that were responded in under 40 minutes. Now, these figures are very, very concerning in terms of actually getting to patients in time to ensure that they are the ambulances arrive and they can go to hospital and get whatever care they want. The other worrying factor is that the number of actual ambulances for the department haven't actually increased. As was in the financial report, that even though 113 ambulances were handed over in districts, 114 ambulances were actually disposed of. So in actual numbers, the department has one ambulance fewer that they have compared to the previous quarter. What I want to know is what steps are the department putting in place to ensure that ambulances numbers in actual terms actually increase, and that response times can rise from what is 36 and 35% in urban and rural areas. My second question is on the financial report. What I would want to know is what is the total number of accruals? Because what the acting CFO said is a bit concerning, that to reduce the amount of overspending, the department went and increased its accruals. That just means that it is delaying what is the inevitable of having to pay this amount and the actual overspend of the department. So what is that total number of accruals, and how is it affecting the department's mandate, as in I think it's a Treasury circular that all bills should be paid within 30 days, because that is an important priority of the government, to pay all invoices within 30 days. Yet now we're speaking about accruals because it's having a major impact on businesses. I myself during the week received an email from a business who has a contract with the department which says they have still not been paid, even though they submitted an invoice far back as the 10th of September 2019, and they're still awaiting payment by the department. So I want to know what steps are being put in place to make sure that bills are paid. And my last question, just on the financials, is related to what is on slides 20 and 21, which of the financial report, financial presentation, I mean, which deals with the problems regarding medical legal. We know that the medical legal issues within the department have been it's been a problem for a very, very long time. On the slide 31, it indicates that the expenditure to date is sitting at 301.818 million rand. And quite rightly, the department has identified what the issues related to medical legal is, which is the critical shortage of and I'm quoting in the report, the critical shortage of specialized nursing staff, particularly in the areas of obstetrics and pediatrics. My question then is, what are the plans in place to make sure that these specialized nursing staff are recruited, and to ensure that if we can't recruit them, that the existing nursing staff we have go for the training that they need, as well as when it comes to medical specialists, which they state in the report provide leadership in these units, to get them employed to particularly the labor wards and the pediatric wards, to ensure that these medical legal claims are reduced. Even if they are through public-private partnerships with private obstetricians or pediatricians to come in and provide this leadership that is needed in our hospitals, as the department did when we were in the oncology crisis. And Chair, just my last question is on the department's COVID-19. One thing that the MEC and the HOD did not cover is the NHLS. What is their current backlog of tests, if they have one? And what is the current delay in people getting results? There's been a lot of rumors going about that tests can take as long as 10 days for patients or doctors to get their test results. Can they give us details on that? As well as what is the department doing to deal with the various worker strife that we are also having within the department? We do know of a case, for example, at the Phoenix CHC, where the staff there down tools for what is now almost a week, not giving out medication to their chronic patients. What is being done to ensure that the concerns of staff regarding infections and tests are being dealt with and that patients can get care during this time? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honorable Virana. Honorable Shamin.
Yeah, Chair, let me start off with the easier one first, and that'll be on the COVID report. I think that slide 7 on that report, in terms of the deaths in the different districts, maybe, we should get another report on the awareness that the department is, awareness programs maybe that the department is embarking on about deaths and funerals, especially when they take place at home, because we saw a report coming from National that how this is handled can cause further spread in a home amongst family members. So maybe a report on that at another time. But also the fact that the CFO has promised us is going to make available the 3.6 billion projected budget and with the line items, because that is something that we will have to look at continuously.
Sorry, Honorable Thakur. The issue of the funerals, you want to know the role played by the department during the funerals?
No. I want to know that what dedicated program or plan do they have to bring about awareness about the spread even during this time, maybe with CCGs, what plan do they have? Because a notice did come from National. The Honorable Dr. Mkhize said that there was a danger that how these are handled in homes, the dead bodies, presents a problem as well to family members. So I just wanted to know what intervention the Department of Health would have for that.
No, I just want to rule out as far up to the end of the waste disposal. At least I think it should end up at the mortuary. But as far as the department is concerned, I do understand that the issue of the awareness campaigns, as far as the communities are concerned, it should not be something that is going to be pinpointed to a certain department because the issues of compliance, as far as the Act is concerned, it is cross-cutting to everybody. We will have the child being born in the hospital, and then the patient will die in hospital. The actual handling of that body by the health staff, I think it ends there as far as the issue of the hospital, of the Department of Health. When it comes to the awarenesses that are going out, it should be a social cluster responsibility, because it's going to be difficult for the department to have its own campaign that is talking about post-death. I think we will be putting ourselves, let that notice come and then be analyzed and come to us as a committee in a formal way, so that we all understand how will it be rolled out. That's my submission for now.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with what you're saying, but I'm thinking futuristically, and I think it will impact on primary health care programs, and the MEC is very passionate about a variety of primary healthcare programs that she has taken on, and I think that it's better that they do respond to it, though. Then, in terms of the non-financial reporting, I want to applaud the department because of the years of investment in primary health care, that we've actually got the average life expectancy increasing the way that it has on slide 5. And slide 8 on reducing the maternal mortality rate. I know we're reducing, and we've reduced by 3, and that is very good. But I also think that most of the litigation for the department does come from maternal deaths. And therefore, I think that we've just got 10 years to, not missing SDG 3. And in that target, it's below 37 deaths of mothers per 100,000. And therefore, maybe a dedicated plan with SOPs, accreditation, regulations at another time to tell us how we plan to get below the 37 deaths of mothers. The next one is on slide 16, which is a very interesting slide. I want to thank the HOD for explaining the slide, but I think that it's a slide that we need to see, that the colors move to the yellows and the greens, and all the red areas taken out. And that would be our work as a committee. But I think that 2 things that stand out, and that is TB care and psychiatric care, and how that will feature in rationalization and restructuring, especially with the new Dr. Pixley Hospital coming about, and the usage of the staff, the CEO component there, because currently I feel it's a very skewed component, and I know there's a bit of a disconnect between the CFO's report of slide 7 on page 4 of the financial report compared to the explanation of slide 16, page 8 of the HOD's report, because where, for example, in district hospitals, and I agree that we need district health strengthening, but where he's saying that we spend more money, the HOD says we spend more money per day on the patient because we've got extra staff there, and therefore the CE that eats into the CEO component, but yet the disconnect comes in on slide 7 of page 4 of the financial report, where the CFO says that we are mitigating overspending in other sections of goods and services in district health services by mitigating it with under expenditure of compensation of employees due to the filling of posts. So I think that that's a bit of a disconnect, and we need to resolve that somewhere along in either the rationalization, it'll become clearer, or maybe another explanation. The other is on slide 17, and the intervention of enforcement of adherence to admission and discharge criteria at facility level. And I just wanted to know how well this intervention is really working in our hospitals. The next one is on page 10, and that is slide 20. This is with the psychiatric hospitals, and I wanted to check with the department, and especially because of the slide 16 issue of psychiatric care and the long stay of psychiatric patients. Reading it with slide 20, I wanted to know whether the department is actually looking at partnering with other NGOs or the private sector to help with psychiatric patients, and sort of they're looking at how their talents can be used in other areas, and maybe it will lessen the stay in hospitals. Coming to then the financial report, the second page on the 80.453 million overspend. The problem for us going forward is the first charge effect on the budget, but maybe when we get that COVID separate line item report from the CFO, we would be able to see in the fourth quarter exactly what was spent towards COVID-19 mitigation and what was spent on other items that has caused that overspend, so that we can see what interventions until we get the extra money from national. Slide 5 on the financials, you can see why district health system strengthening is needed, because we're continuously overspending on it. Similarly with emergency services and infrastructure health facilities management, yet 3 sections are always underspending: central, hospitals, health sciences, and then healthcare support. So somehow we need to see how to better move or via those budgets. Then I did discuss the compensation, that slide 7 was discussed. Slide 12 on health sciences training. I see that 77 interns were repeating exams. I was wondering how or who's tracking or, maybe mentoring them, because that's a waste when you're repeating exams to the department. The other slide is slide 18 on goods and services and the over budgeting on areas like contractors' costs, agencies, business advisory. And I feel that if we over budgeting, then that's why we're getting skewed budgets in other important sections like district health services, etc. And maybe some thought should be given around that. When it comes to interest on and rent on land, there's a lot of interest levied there, and therefore, if maybe it's itemized, how much went towards municipal domestic accounts, telecom, etc., we could see where the inefficiencies are coming and we could track it, because obviously there's a problem with the methodology or staffing, because there's a lot of inefficiency there, and here it's money that can be saved. In other departments I know, they're doing a lot of work to try and reduce these interests that occur due to inefficiencies. Okay, I think the non-profit institutions, there was 3.085 million underspent, and yet in transfer, that was on slide 20, whereas slide 19 transfers to the municipality. On the HIV and AIDS, there was an underspending of 2.605 million. Now I'm thinking that if we are underspending on NPOs and the municipality is underspending on the HIV and AIDS services, maybe somehow we must think whether we should be rather sending of money to the municipality or rather finding NPOs in this sector, HIV sector, that can actually spend the money. Medical legal claims, I understand that the 3 hospitals that are sort of prevalent in causing this expenditure, but and I do understand the centers of excellence that are coming up. But I just want to caution the department that we must always understand a rule or a motto in health, and that is prevention of harm to people who come to our facilities, because we always have to have the maintenance of trust between our clients or patients. And what that would, why the centers of excellence may send out a wrong message that we are actually increasing morbidities spend against prevention spend, and because in the future we'll have to then separate mortalities claims from morbidities claims, and that's just my view on it. But I wouldn't want a wrong impression. I don't know whether it's going to be just a short-term intervention until we improve health services and decrease litigation. But I don't think it would be a good trend to set, although for data management, it may be something that would help us to see what are mortalities and what are the morbidity spends then. So that brings me to slide 23 on the grants. And I feel that we are underspending on some grants like the NHI, and maybe we must have a breakdown of exactly what are the areas that are causing those underspends, because it just says underspend, and yet it's a major thing, the NHI, that we're all looking forward to, but we can't underspend on it. We must have go down to the root cause of exactly where is the problem. So maybe a root cause analysis there. And just want to see 29. Okay, we've done the report on the COVID-19. That's fine. The HPV prevention, we have overspent. I don't have a problem with overspending on an immunization grant, but just to see for this year, what is the estimated teenagers or learners that would be needing to be vaccinated, so that we could better budget for that, or make a bigger plea to National to give us a bigger conditional grant on that. And then maybe at some other stage to actually look at, if we are overspending, I think that you're passionate, Chair, Honourable Chair, about wastage. And I think that we must have a report on cold chain management, the fridges purchase, missing injections, maybe expired injections, because those injections are very expensive. And I'm just trying to see where the over expenditure is coming. And finally, it's on the infrastructure. And as I've mentioned before, I would really appreciate a report on the autoclaves, because we can see that for water tanks, generators, lifts, and autoclaves, there's supply chain management issues, I understand. But all these projects actually impact on how we manage COVID and the comorbidities that for the vulnerable populations, especially with COVID, because there's 33 autoclaves, 23 have been cancelled because of the expiries, and these 23 are handed over to facilities. Now, I know that this is appearing on an ongoing basis annually on this report, and therefore, somehow we need to see the list of that other 23 facilities where the implementation is taking place, because these are very important for waste management and, for hygiene and SOPs. And that is the only reason why I really want a cost, a line to be put there, project, then cost, and then progress, because we can actually cost then where these backlogs are and how they need to be moved, or what are the actual bottlenecks for them. Thank you, Chair. That's all I needed to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chakur. Honorable Kumete.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, MEC and the members of the department and other colleagues. I'll be very brief. About severe acute malnutrition, rising from 7,6 to 8,4. I remember we spoke about this at length when we visited Inseleni Clinic at some point when we were doing our oversight. And I know that Dr. Shabalala said that they don't know whether it's COVID thing that is increasing it or not. But having said so, I would like to ask the department if they could consider bringing back the ProNutro program back to the clinics, especially where they find that the numbers are increasing in malnutrition. Number two, the surge of the infections as we are going to move forward is going to come more specifically from human behavior. And I would like to know if the department is engaging other departments as to how they're going to deal with human beings, because right now everybody just moves around without a mask, without anything, as if nothing has happened. Number three is the issue of laboratories. Is it possible, because we cannot build now, maybe have what do you call these things, park homes, and have laboratories within institutions? Because you see, in the hospital like St. Augustine's, they use their own laboratories and other laboratories that has got a turnover time of about 24 to 48 hours to know whether the patient is positive or not. In some cases, they even take only 1 day and then they don't know. And then you go to the hospital like Gizenga. You find that they've got cases that they've sent there, they've quarantined them until the whole quarantine time of 14 days is gone without the results. And when they ask in Coast Albert, they say that they are stuck. They've got more than 200,000 cases tests just there, waiting to be tested. I think they must also look in the issues of the laboratories within institutions. And then the much spoken about issue of the medical legal. I would say we will welcome the 555 medical interns that are coming, but who's going to supervise them? Because during the older order time, we used to have things like a register, a senior register, a consultant, which now is at these staggered hospitals like a district, regional, tertiary, and so on. We don't have people who supervise these doctors. Those who have been nurses before, they will know. Sometimes doctors come to the hospitals not knowing a difference from A and B and be told by a professional nurse what to do and what not to do. Sometimes they think that they prescribe the right medication for the patient when the professional nurse is using other medication until the patient is bad. And these doctors are very arrogant. They will always look down upon nurses and say that they're educated. And yes, in the health community, it's not about education, it's about experience. If you are not experienced, you will falter with your own education. And the other one is the high care nurses. I noticed that in the high care nurses, only 8. I've been in the high care situation. 8. I don't know, maybe you look at an hour or sometime. And the last one, I would like to know, in Gizenga Hospital, why or when is their maternity unit going to be commissioned? Because as the MEC has correctly said, now we need to have more isolation beds within the hospital. And if they reallocate patients to leave a space, the more patients they have in Kizenga is the maternity cases. They estimated about 600 a day. If you could consider and look as to when and why not is the maternity unit in Kizenga is not commissioned is fine. Finally, this is personal now. I belong to the 100% vulnerable groups. When I went to the doctor last week, he prescribed medication for me, but I could not get that medication in all the pharmacies. All the pharmacies told me that the department said we must not be issued with these drugs. Amongst other drugs, there was this thing, chloroquine, and the other one was vitamin C, 1000, the other one was vitamin C. I would like to know, I don't like rumors, I don't like hearsays. Does the department know anything about not us getting this drug from pharmacists? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, members, for your input. I'm looking at today's program that is going out to all the members on the portfolio of education. I'm looking at another issue. I don't want to give it its name, which is something that is going to be also impacting to the department, the opening of the schools, the readiness in the opening of the schools. I'm looking at it that as much as it is from the Department of Education, there is something that will also be linking us, as much as we are still in this situation of the shortage of staff, especially when we are talking of the school health nurses. Well, it's fine. I was just going past to that one. There is something that I want to applaud the department for doing it. Preparing for a pandemic is not a child's play, especially in our health systems that we know that they are not 100%. Everything that we are doing, we are trying to do our best. But we have to be in compliance with the Act. I'm looking at how they have done their reconfiguration, looking at when we are looking at Iherigwala, and they came up with the Richmond Hospital, because this issue of not separating the isolation ward as from the quarantine, it's something that would put us in a very, very critical situation. They will start from quarantine and they can end up in isolation. Then they have also mentioned the issue of the ICUs, as well as the issue of the ventilators that have been they have been procured. I would say, and then they've got the field hospitals, the temporary hospitals, some of them that can, as much as they are temporary hospitals, they are the hospitals that can take us up to 20 years, according to the lifespan of the architectural group. So I would say, as much as we do have some gaps as the province, looking at comparing it with other provinces, I would say we are trying. Hello? Hello? Somebody saying, Chair, am I out of order? Am I out of order? Okay. I am looking at us as being on the right track. When you are looking at Umzinyati, where we do have the Dundee hospitals with 30 beds, using 3 wards, as part of some are part of quarantine, some are part of the isolation. Ndidlule apho ndibe sengisiza kwisimo. When I come to the issue of the mental health hospitals, we know that the issue of the mental health hospitals, it has got an element of the involvement of South African police services, because these people will conduct something criminally and then they will end up being in our institutions. I know that there was something that we have said it should be done between these two departments, because at the end of the day, this person will be kept within our institutions longer because of the failure of the SAPS to finalize the case. So it's something that we can check in the line of co-funding such cases. I wouldn't say it's something that is possible to be done. I was happy to hear the issue of the total number of the quarantine beds as we are having now, to have 5,200, and then we have on isolation 1,800. That is not the end. As the situation goes on, we will be in a position to see how better can we adjust ourselves to that situation. The third one is the issue of the grant. Thank you, department, for not having a grant that is left unspent. At least you have mentioned that the only grant that has not been utilized is the one that is talking about the contracting of the NHI doctors, of which it's something that you are working on. It was not going to be, it was delayed. It was not of your own doing, but you are working on it. It's bad to hear that the department is having an unspent conditional grant. Thank you so much for doing that. And as far as you have mentioned the issue of your response on COVID, I still want us to talk with the issue of the forensic. Let us not shy away on it. Let us deal with it, because once we reach to an issue of a mortuary, and then we have our mortuary attendants that are there, it will be still be in putting us on headlines if we can have a problem in that area. I wish next time we could have a proper report that is talking to the issue of forensic and things that we've done correct, because it was also in part of our APP and budget. The issue of Gale Street, we have been up and down, being haunted by the media now and again about Gale Street. Now that everything has been finalized about Gale Street, you are no longer coming to us and tell us that finally we have done with the issue of the Gale Street. And I wish I could understand currently in the issue of the worst scenario, how many mortuaries do we have? And what preparedness do we have in such a situation? It might not be today's response if you don't have something in hand, but I would commend the department. When you have started something, make sure that if it's a project, it should have a start and an end. At least the issue of Gale Street is now a history. Thank you so much for that. I would say the department can now respond.
Thank you very much, Chair. If I may just come in first, then OHOD and the team will come in. Network yam lapha corner is a bit problematic, so I'm worried that izosheshe ihambe ngakakhulumi isihlalo. Let me start with the issue of forensic report and Gale Street, and accept the Chair that you are requesting that report. We will certainly provide it in the next meeting, and I hope HOD is putting that down. The next element that I just wanted to indicate on, Chair, is that of Idandi. Idandi, we are creating isolation wards, Chair, totally, not quarantine. Those who will need to be quarantined will have to be moved to a different facility, a lodge or a hotel in the area. Let me then go to I didn't hear Honorable Viran Gahle. I only got the last part of his question, which was relating to the NHLS capacity, and I think Umhlonisho Kumeta was also speaking to that. So ngizohlanganisa ama responses. Chair, we have a challenge with the National Health Laboratory Services. When this particular pandemic started, they confirmed that they had enough capacity, but they indicated that in terms of their kits, amanyama kits abo, they get them from the US, others they get from Germany. And the US upfront indicated to them that they are not going to prioritize South Africa because they must prioritize their own people. So right from the beginning, we knew that we are not going to be getting kits from AUS. So we relied on the kits that we are getting from Germany. Right now, NHLS is indicating that they have a challenge with something that is called a reagent, which is the liquid that they must put in the samples. That is the reason why there's a backlog. And as we speak, the province of KwaZulu-Natal has a backlog of about 20, I think we are on 28,000 tests now. So, but the backlog is not just in KwaZulu-Natal, it is the backlog in the whole country. 2 weeks ago, Gauteng was on 30,000 specimens backlog. So all of us have a challenge that is similar. We have raised the issue with the minister who has spoken to NHLS, and they are working on trying to find other alternatives. But we must indicate, Chair, that the shortage is a shortage that is worldwide, as we all know that the whole world is utilizing these kits. So right now, that is the challenge that we are having. We have agreed with the minister that we are going to start utilizing the private labs that are there in the province. Having said that, the private labs in the next couple of weeks are themselves going to run out of reagents if we don't get new stock. So it will continue to be a challenge, Share. So I'm responding to the issue of capacity and the fact that we've got samples that are more than 10 days old. So that is what is the challenge, and we have tried to come up with a solution. Honorable Zaku Rashbansi was asking about what is our plan in relation to, I think, once people have passed on, what do we do? You are right, Chairperson. That's a social issue, a social cluster issue. It is currently being discussed in the social cluster, but the people who are responsible really is local government. But we are engaging them and trying to get them to be ready and get a proper plan from them on understanding what is their plan, so that we must know that everyone is ready. In relation to malnutrition program, Umhlonisho Kumeta was ubuza ukuthi can the department consider adding the ProNutro or going back to the ProNutro program? I think, Chair, once we've established that we really have a challenge with the malnutrition, we as a department are going to have to go back and relook if we approach it. Having said that, Chair, I do want to indicate that finances are going to be a challenge for us, maybe for the next couple of years, just because of this 6 months year COVID. So other programs we might really want to implement, but we might find that financially we are unable to do so. I'm not saying that the ProNutro program is not something we are going to consider, but in relation to all the programs of the department, Chair, it means literally we are going to be starting as if we are starting a new government, because it will look like all our finances are going to be absorbed or taken over by COVID. The issue of the maternity ward in Gizenga, Chair, is a serious problem that we have. We have raised them. Okay, let me start by saying that particular ward, I'm told, was started in 2012 to be built, and it's being built by the Department of Public Works. And over the years, they have never handed it over to the department. And right now, we do need the bed, as Umhlonisho Kumeta correctly indicates. So we have spoken to the MEC of Public Works to say what can they do to fast track this, because it's really necessary for us to get the beds and be able to utilize them. So we are working on the matter, but it is the Public Works, and it's Public Works who's delaying us, Chair. But I think, as you would know, Public Works generally does have a problem when it comes to issue of infrastructure. Kodwa I guess sizayibona ukuthi siyakwazi ukuyithola yini leyo, Chair. I think those are the questions that I wanted to respond to. Then HOD and the team can come in, Chair.
Thank you, MEC. HOD.
Can we head I want to start with Honorable Rana, where he speaks about the emergency medical services. I think in the 1 year that, by the way, today is 1 year, 1 day since our MEC became the MEC. In that period of time, MEC has decided us procuring more than 200 ambulances. And these ambulances mostly are ambulances that are replacing other ambulances, but also to a degree they're adding to others that we have to, following the prescripts of the country, we have to do away with because of their mileage and because of other reasons where they get to be in accidents and other reasons. But the numbers of ambulances, yes, we are not there yet, but we are finding that we are increasing slowly with the procurements. Even this financial year, we will be procuring other ambulances to try and increase this. The other aspect is that we have seen so far a slight decrease in terms of the stealing of our cars and ambulances included. I think it's because of the trackers that we have put on the ambulances. So we think we're doing well along those lines. The numbers of ambulances, therefore, are not enough. The numbers of staff also, we are trying to increase, but also there were other rules in terms of qualifications of staff, which we have to adhere to. And this is a difficult problem for the whole country. SA has called that some ambulances or some procedures must be done by highly skilled people. So even if we respond in time, you find that that response is not going to make a big difference because the numbers of people who are qualified are not enough in the province, not only in the province, but in the country. The other thing, particularly in the rural areas, you find that the territory itself is not a territory that is good enough for us to reach people in time. So we are trying to work on the response times, but we've got many issues that we have to navigate for us to be able to reach at the milestone that we think we should reach. Now, with the issue of accruals to the CFO, however, we do at all times try to pay within 30 days. Yes, there is a delay when there are accruals, but we do not deliberately not pay people over 30 days simply because we want to extend the available funds. In any case, we will have to use these funds at some stage. However, I want to leave that question for further clarity from CFO, because there was a question of saying, what is the total number of accruals? I do not know whether he has that ready right now, but I will allow him to take that question further. But also, I would want to ask Honorable Virana, if there is a business that says has not been paid from September, I would like to get the details of that business so that we investigate why they have not been paid up to now. I'm saying this because I always say to the team, we cannot use last financial year's money to pay last financial year's debt to pay with this financial year's money. So I'm trying to check on that, but let's follow it up and let's see why were they paid. I have also had a complaint from somebody who said I was not paid, but when we checked their invoice, they had included things that were not supposed to be in that invoice. So when we scrutinize invoices, to a degree, we do find that we get to change some of our challenges. In terms of the medical legal expenses, the plans to have the centers of excellence will go on, and they are going on. But we are also procuring services of other specialties of categories of staff like physiotherapists, audiotherapists, and all the other relevant stuff for those centers of excellence. We are doing this because among the cases that we've seen, we've realized that most of the cases are cases that are very old. Some are 10 years old, and when we pay for future medical services. We therefore are saying it's better that these future medical services are given to people who are complaining about them by us. It's going to cost us less because we will be giving the service. Secondly, we will be using this human resource also for other cases other than cases that relate to the medical legal services. But as well, most of the time, when medical aids have been finished, the very cases that would have been attended by the private sector ends up coming to us with the same complaint of saying we've not been attended for whatever other reason. So we think have a category of people who may have complained or who may have interacted with us in court is a proper decision. And it's not only short-sighted, but it's going to be ongoing. And we want to make sure that these categories of staff are available in almost all the institutions where they can be employed. So we are going to continue doing that. But Honorable Virana speaks of clinical people taking leadership and the supervision of junior. As far as we know, junior doctors do get to be supervised. Maybe we need to follow up. And most of the time, when junior doctors are told to continue in terms of their internship period, usually it's not because they were not supervised or because they have failed in some sectors, but you find that the number of days they would have spent within a certain department is less than what is required by HPCSA, and we therefore work with them to say we must they must continue until they have finished those number of days. But we also do relationships with different staff specialties who will come into our department as sessional workers, some sessional obstetricians, also some sessional medical officers with experience in obstetrics and pediatrics and other fields as well. So there is that relationship. And when we have that relationship, we really look at it as people coming as individuals to relate with the government and offer their services, and we pay them for the numbers, for the number of hours that they work. We do, however, encourage our people to say, let them be employed on a post, because having a person on a full-time basis is much better than having people who are doing sessional. So we do also try to work around that, although it is an issue. MEC has spoken to the issue of the backlog, and I must say this backlog at the moment is found to be HLS, but soon will be in the private sector. This is because the reagent, as MEC is saying, is the same reagent used by NHLS as much as it is used by the private sector. So the private sector is also going to be running out if they have not already started to run out. But also, MEC and the National Minister have spoken to say, if needs be, let us also work with the private laboratories to see if we can fast track us getting the results quicker than what we are having, and therefore reducing the backlog that the MEC is talking about. Now, in terms of the worker strikes and the other strikes, MEC did allude to the guidelines we have signed, which is speaking to how we should manage our staff when they find one of them being infected by COVID-19, and also how we manage the workplaces when in that workplace a COVID virus was found to have existed. That guideline is there. It has been shared by the management committee of the department. It has from the office and it has been distributed to all the districts. All that is expected now is that it be implemented and be shared also with the staff. In any case, it is the same guideline that we expect to be implemented even by the private sector. One is alluding to this because when we checked the St. Augustine cases, we found them wanting very much compared to the public sector in terms of them complying with the infection prevention and control prescripts. And we have shared this information with them. MEC has had so many meetings with the different private sector managements to emphasize the fact that they must also ensure that they comply with all these prescripts that are necessary. We, however, are saying we're not going to be concentrating on COVID alone. There are other illnesses, and the people who deserve to be having their medication collected in other posts in the form of CCMDD posts, we're going to be doing that so that we reduce the number of people who go to our institutions unnecessarily. So that will continue. In fact, the fact that the numbers of people who have been visiting our institutions has been so low has taught us that if we strengthen our primary health care, a lot can be achieved at a cheaper rate than what we are paying now. So we are also learning from the 3-month pandemic that we are going through now. So we really think we are doing very well, but also the issue of taking care of our staff in terms of them complying with the PPE prescripts. We have found that when our staff is sitting without patients in front of them, they do not really adhere or comply with the PPE rules as much as they do when there is a patient in front of them. Therefore, we have decided that we're going to continue workshopping them on the utilization of the PPE. Remember, we are changing a culture and we have to really emphasize the education or the workshops in terms of that culture change. I think the issue, Chairperson, of the deaths and the funerals, it's a responsibility of all of us. How do we maintain the social distance, how we wash our hands, how we behave generally, such that even in funerals and other gatherings, churches included, how people react to each other, how people keep the distance, it's a lesson that we all must give when we have been taught about it. We are, however, Chair, are going to come back as the MEC with a fuller report in terms of FPS. However, even in the FPS, they do PPE and they are covered in terms of them being workshopped on how to manage patients with PPE. The projected COVID budget, I think we did allude to it. It's a projected and it's a model that we're using. So we may not be able to say definitely this is how much we're going to be spending, given the numbers that may be infected and also the required beds or resources to take care of these patients. But we are hoping that with all the preventive mechanisms we've put down, we are going to be finding ourselves having fewer patients being infected or fewer patients needing very sophisticated care, which is generally expensive. Mortality, we hope, is going to be limited. I think the litigations and the mortality rate, most of the time, the mortalities, we know where they come from in terms of maternal mortality, but we do have plans to try and reduce them. We try as hard as possible to work on that one. So we'll continue to do that. The intent, I think I've spoken to their supervision and also the long-term statements. One is spoken to when we're saying we want to involve families and community in managing these patients. The spending on NPOs, CFO will speak to that to a degree, but there were challenges that we found with how the NPOs were spending and how also they were monitored. I'm definitely sure it's not happening going forward. So I think we are covered on that. I do not know whether Chair still wants us to go back to the HPV. Safe to say that the numbers of teenagers that will need to be covered with the papillomavirus vaccine in future, I have not been able to calculate. We may need to go back and check how much would we need, and then we will be able to come back. I would want to a clarity on what was the question on autoclaves. I did not get that very well, but I think the questions that I was able to scribble, I've gone to. If Chair allows, I will then ask that CFO answer some of the questions that I've left out. Thank you a lot, Chairperson. Maybe I should end by saying, in terms of our readiness for schools opening, we are not only ready as Department of Health, but we are working with the Department of Education. We are working with the Department of Social Development and other social cluster departments, but as a government led by the Premier, are working into making sure that when schools open, the numbers of infected people do not increase by virtue of us having opened the school. So there are plans that are happening at that level. They have been presented to the cluster. They have been presented to the command. We have a team as a department working with the Department of Education to monitor. The district managers in the whole province have been engaged, and they have been asked to actively look for managers and principals of the schools in their districts so that they work with them at ground level. And therefore, I would say we as a department and as government are prepared to see schools opening. Thank you, Chairperson. If I've left anything, CFO can respond to that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, HOD. I think you have covered most of the burning issues that were requested by the members. The issue of the autoclaves, I heard you mentioning something about 19th of September and now their availability. And the issue of the HPVs, I was only concerned not necessarily about the numbers, about it being in the ages report so that it is getting out of it. So now it is no longer an issue under ages report. I think if there are some other issues left, we can take some resolutions that such issues that need deeper clarity more than what has been explained. It can be that needs an explanation. It can be one-on-one, or else if it needs to be a written report. But according to the explanation that has been done, I haven't seen anything that would need such a written report to the members. But those that can be dealt at one-on-one, I think it's something that can be done. I'm looking at the issue of our meeting started at 8 and now we are already at 2. I don't say we are not supposed to be doing what we have been called to do. So that was my proposal.
Chair?
I am already seeing some hands. Honorable Buran.
Thank you, Chair. There's just one of my questions that wasn't answered, just from the CFO. If he has the actual amount of what the accruals are, and I'm not sure if there's time for a follow-up question, because I have a follow-up question on what the HOD just said.
You come up with your follow-up question so that
HOD
manage
follow-up question Just then, thank you, Chair. Just a follow-up question for the HOD. You did mention the problems that we're having with necessarily the budget and the beds and those things needed for COVID-19. But I would like to know then, according to the modeling that is being done at a provincial or national level for KwaZulu-Natal, what are the projections in terms of infections and the bed requirement for the province? It will give us as a committee some insight as to the preparedness of the department and how to monitor COVID-19 spending going ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Takur.
Yes, Chair, I think the HOD wanted clarity on the autoclave question. That was slide 35. So all I was asking there was if the table can give us more information and to add a costing to each of the items, and then the facilities where these are going, even if they intend a stage and all that, and manufacturing, and then the expected time, because they're at various times, so that we can track them. So basically just a little more expanded table was required, but that can be for the next meeting. No. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Takur. CFO.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Just in short, the amount of accruals for the 1920 financial year is still being collated. That's one of the reasons why the submission dates have actually been shifted, officially so by National Treasury, so that we actually have ample time to finalize our annual financial statements in the context of there being this pandemic. But if I can just add, accruals are inherent in accounting, more so in the context of modified cash standards that guide us in the preparation of our financial statements. I'm saying so because the moment there is a commitment and goods and invoices are received, that immediately becomes an accrual. But what is more of a challenge are those accruals that obviously would be in excess of 30 days in terms of us not paying. Those are the ones that we were on a drive to actually clear, and we are hopeful that there is going to be very little of those, if any, come actual submission of our annual financial statements. Members of the committee will recall where we come from. For instance, in the 18-19 financial year, yes, that value of accruals was sitting at about 1.2 billion. So that's how bad the situation was back then. So that is the what we're trying to actually manage this time around by keeping that number as low as possible. And correctly so, as mentioned by honourable members, to say it's not an ideal in terms of our fiscals going forward. It shouldn't actually be, as it deprives us of money that we should be spending on new priorities, yet we are still covering for costs that would have incurred in the previous financial year. But in short, yes, that number is still being collated. It's not finalized as yet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. CFO, we don't even want the little, it should be none. Finalize it and nothing to be said. It's a balance. SOT, do you have anything to say according to Honorable Virang?
Chairperson, I think we are still looking at the models. When we initially started, we had said probably we need 2,000, 3,000 beds. But also the model that we were using was saying we must have 5% of ICU beds, 15% of isolation beds and then the 80% beds. However, the changes we are seeing now is that we may need more of the isolation beds than generally the quarantine beds. That has therefore said to us, we must start changing this very model, and we've asked people at the UKZN to look at the changes given the trajectory in terms of the incidence of the disease in the province. But also that then starts to speak to how much therefore do we project, because a bed for ICU and a bed for isolation and a bed for quarantine will cost different amounts. Informed therefore by that work, we can be able to estimate. At the moment, we know that even national is really not very clear of the projected spend that will cost of COVID. The aim is that we have fewer people needing to go to ICU, which will cost us less in terms of the numbers. So I would want to answer that question in that aspect. I cannot put a monetary projection at the moment. Yes, we may be getting some assistance from national, but I cannot put a monetary model and amount that we are projecting to spend on COVID.
Thank you, HOD. I think having said that, I must also now say thank you for the department for this presentation, but please don't forget to give us, if you do have a plan that is talking to the readiness of the school, we wish you could know it. You could share it with us so that we do have what is expected of us as a committee on that readiness. Because whatever readiness they have, their readiness depends on us most of the time. Having said that, I think now it is the time for us to get the tabling of the Youth Parliament responses by the department, and then we'll take them home, and then we will have another time of dealing with it. Can we get that? HOD.
I would be guided by the meeting in terms of that time, Chair.
In terms of?
Chair says there are other things that we would need to deal with in some other time. Did I get you very well?
No, it's the issue of, if you do have a plan on the readiness of schools, we wish we could have it. But if you don't have it, well, it's fine. But I think there is a place where you all converge, and each department has got its own responsibility to play. If you do have that one, you can send it to us from the social.
Maybe, Chair, I can speak to the HOD for DOE, Department of Education. Let me say, Chair, why I'm saying that. As late as yesterday, they were still having some meetings with different leaderships within the Department of Education and changing a few things in the plan that they had initially. There is a plan that is existing and was presented to the social cluster by the Department of Education, very comprehensive. Maybe I should ask for it and ask that it be shared with the members. So I will do that today, and as soon as I get it, I will then ask that it be shared with yourselves, Chair.
Okay, that is why I said, okay, let's go for the tabling of the responses that were asked in our previous youth parliament. I think
allow me to
all understand the issue of tabling.
Yes, we do. I would like this meeting, therefore, Chair, to allow me to table these Youth Parliament resolutions of the meeting that took place between the 14th and the 16th of June 2019 in Umzinyati district. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, HOD. Members, here are the responses. Here is the document tabled in front of us. Can we note it?
Chair?
Honorable Zirana?
Chair, just a question. Is the responses for noting, or do we make input as well? Because I see this is a response directly to the Youth Parliament. So I just want to know what our role as a committee is.
Shamil? Honorable Shamil?
Yes, Chair. I think mine is similar because I wanted to make one comment, but you can guide us.
Is there any other member?
Chair.
Honorable Tele?
Can the HOD, I don't know whether it's HOD who is dealing with this report. Can he tell us what was resolutions that were relevant to the Department of Health, and did they implement it? How far with that report? Then, Chairperson, I would propose and I'll second your motion that we note the report and then we deal with it. We go and read it, and then we came back. But by the time we go back.
Okay, dear. Okay, honorable members, we all know that the procedure is when the report is tabled in front of us, you are seeing it for the first time, or we have just had a little time of you going through it. Let's take the report and go back home. Then we come back on the day where we will be dealing with the report.
Matters arising.
We have said for matters arising,
has been
legal
deferred.
advisor, we have deferred our matters arising to our next meeting. I think that was the resolution that we took in after the in point number. Come again.
This for matters arising.
Sorry, Chair. I was suggesting that we can deal with the responses to the Youth Parliament report together with the matters arising on whatever date that the committee decides on.
Yes.
Yeah, we can deal with both issues on the same day.
Thank you so much. It will give us enough time to deal, because matters arising are more of our resolutions. And as this committee, we have not been following the issue of the resolutions. So it will be the beginning of our process, making sure that we are following our resolutions through the matters arising. So we are going to depend to the admin to check a proper time, a proper date for us to have that meeting. Remember, we are going to June, so the very responses that are being tabled to us, they will be coming up. It's much better for those responses to go to that Youth Parliament having been adopted by us after we have read them. It's not going to be a good thing for us, but just rush on them. So I think that is the procedure we're going to follow. Having said that, let me take the opportunity of thanking you members for being so patient for this long day meeting. We started at 8 and now it's already towards 2:20. It's because you are so passionate about the preservation of the lives of our people, as well as the taking care of the very people of the KwaZulu-Natal. especially at this point in time of COVID, because most of the things that have just delayed us are more on COVID. Thank you to the department for giving us this explanation. Now, no one will say from this district, I won't be knowing the isolation hospital nor the quarantine hospital, as well as the difference between those two and the funds that are being spent so far, as well as the projected funds that are needed. Pending that 31st of July, when things are finalized, we know that we are not dealing with something normal. It's abnormal. The very fact that we have extended something that was supposed to be at the end of May to the end of July. I appreciated all that explanation. May God help us to work together throughout this journey, because we want to know who will be present at the end of this COVID-19, because it seems to be looking at each and every individual, depending on how we implement the precautionary measures. Thank you so much, thank you so much, members. At this point in time, I would say I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, Salo, but don't forget to...
Thank you, Chair.
Don't forget to check up with the national chairperson about time and venues. Yes.
No, I won't forget that one.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chair.
Thank
you, Chairperson. Pray for us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Honorable members.
Thank you, my admin staff.
Thank you, our beloved chairperson.
Thank you, Chair.
With Gabateli and Kolani and I am just a headache on you.
Kolani, mawusithumelela ama-message ebusuku ukuthi asilele yini siphela iphethini yokulala seyajika mfethu.
Yes,
Wow, there's my child, Bridget. Wow.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Bridget.
Mola City. Good.
Yaphila.
Yo.
Thanks.
Hey. We are happy to see that smiling face.
Happy to see you too.
You?
Thank you.
Nkulunkulu mkhulu, siyabonga.
Yeah. Thanks.
Siyabonga bantwana bam, thank you so much.
Siyabonga,
Kuku, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Sal.
Thank you, dear. Thank you so much.
Right. Bye.
Bye-bye.